For years our town's been terrorized by the beast who takes disguise in the shell that calls itself Jolene. And in your eyes deep pools of vice, no spilt blood will for her suffice. The elder gods sing in her name, Jolene. Her bloodlust has grown beyond what mortal men may yet reckon. Her mindless drones just screech her name, Jolene. Your teeth are sharp, your mouth agape, your claws rend flesh. There's no escape from the judgment of the Eldritch One, Jolene. Welcome back. It's the Fluffenhammer. Roll the music.
Fluffers, what is best in life?
So some species of demon princess then, yeah?
Yeah, I was thinking like Jolene or Nessie.
Some sort of female equivalent to Baelacor or something like that, yeah?
Yeah, Jolene Core.
Not that it really matters to demons, I don't think. Most of them, anyway.
I mean, there's probably going to be some cornate demon out there. Mouth full of blood, eyes full of bones, hands full of gibbets and guts, and his name is Robert.
I'm sure, I've no doubt. Well, chaos is infinite, isn't it? Chaos is infinite potential, so it must be somewhere.
But, speaking of the infinite powers of chaos and the dark demon princes, hello, George.
Hi, hello. That was a very good introduction. It's been a while, hasn't it? Eh?
It's been about 3 months, I think.
It's been a while. My God, it's so much fun to get back.
And also with us tonight, speaking of things being infinite, taking a while, and, burning hot in the sun like some desiccated corpse. It's Andy!
Hello! Hey! Hi.
Was that a veiled reference to Andy's love of the undead? Or
I was trying to find a way of mixing Andy's various undead loves. I love the dead.
That sounds like, I mean, we're not going down that route, but it sounds like we're accusing him of a necrophilia there, but I'm not,
I don't accuse.
He has pictures.
I don't accuse, I state.
When Andy says he's cracking open a cold one, it's not what you think.
I have a brick fridge for a reason.
In the mortal realms, you could get away with it.
I am sure that in the mortal realms you may get away with it, but it's still very immoral.
Would Nagash frown upon it, or would he be okay about it?
Well, I'm thinking now of like the Larmian vampires and the way they operate, and I'm sort of like, well, isn't that like their entire culture?
Well, yeah, technically having sex with a vampire is necrophilia.
It's necrophilia. They're dead. Yeah, they're undead. So,
and Genevieve really got it whenever she wanted it. So,
right. So, and the
to be fair,
Larmians
Genevieve has all of her skin. I think for a lady of the zombie persuasion, she might have a little bit of a harder go getting it on. Maybe a skeletal person as well might have a little bit of a trouble getting with a partner.
Yeah.
You know those moments in life where you think of something to say, but then the filters just shut down
yes.
like an automatic shutter.
Yeah, it's like, no, I can't say that.
No, that's actually a really horrible thing to say, even for me.
Even for you and this show, yeah?
Yeah.
It's a place we can't go.
I'm kind of both disgusted and impressed with myself, in all honesty.
Never be disgusted with your horrible afflictions of,
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that like
degeneracies?
It's part and parcel of vampire lore, really, isn't it? So,
yeah
if you're going to have vampires, you've got to have... There is a certain degree of necrophilic subject matter going on, always.
There's a massive amount of sexuality with vampires.
Yeah, of course there is. Of course there is. Well,
that's what Dracula is, isn't it? You go right the way back. Dracula, the story of Dracula is the fear of the swarthy foreigner.
That's exactly
over
it.
And having sex with all of my women.
That's exactly it. I mean, that's why it caused a stir at the time. I mean, you know how buttoned down Victorian fiction was, and suddenly you get this very sort of. I mean, there's nothing in the book. Obviously, it's all told in retrospect. It's all very, very dry indeed. But it did cause a bit of a stir.
Are you sure it wasn't just the fear of Gary Coleman coming in and having sex with all your women?
Gary Oldman.
Coleman.
Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman. I mean, oh god, if it's as he appears when he's the young Dracula, when he appears in his suit in London, it's
The
fine.
top hat and glasses.
It's fine.
Yeah.
That's because they knew what they were doing with that. He is like sexuality made manifest.
Oh, there's some really good scenes, like when they go into the tent, and it's like there's a film playing on the background, and it's a man, and this lovely young woman turns into his wife, and it's I don't want my wife, and then he comes into the room, and it turns into a little bit more of a sexual fantasy.
Oh yes,
these very subtle background things that they do in that movie that are really smart, which I didn't realize until I watched a review of it, and I went, God damn,
it's a great.
It's an amazing film.
I love it.
It's a great film.
I love it. Critics hate it. They hate its guts. I love it to bits. It's my favorite version of Dracula.
I think they hate it because it is a little bit melodramatic, and it's got Keanu
It's a
Reeves.
play.
Isn't that the
It's
point?
a goddamn stage, right? So
it's a
when did it come out though? Because I think that when it came out was very
early
kind of
90s.
1992.
I think that's why it was very shit on at the time as well.
1992 is when it came out.
One of the reasons I love that film, and honestly I do, it's because it's a stage play.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
It's not shot like a stage play, but the way the story gets told is a stage play.
Yeah.
I mean, you watch the entire sequence when Keanu Reeves is Keanu Reevesing around on a train. The train is a stage play prop, and it's beautiful, and I love it. And it's gorgeous.
Yeah, the way they did that shot is really interesting as well.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, when they did the shot, they use a model train and to do the book in the foreground, because it's all in camera. All of the effects are in camera. To do the book effect, they just made a giant book.
Yeah.
Because they had to make the book giant, so when the steam train is sending up steam, the steam casts a shadow across the book.
Yeah.
It's
great.
stuff like that.
That's just awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it to bits. But
the fact it wasn't computerized or anything like that, it was all in camera, like the eyes over the top of the sky done in camera. It was done with a backlit projector or something like that.
Yep.
It's super creative.
It's
super
awesome.
Interesting movie.
I love what Adam was saying as well. It's so clear, and this is something for some reason the critics just don't get. It's clear that they sat down around a table, Francis Ford Coppola and everyone else involved, and said, look, we can't tell this story straight.
No.
Because everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. People who've never seen any of the films, people who've never read the book, know this story inside out. We can't tell it straight. So let's just go nuts with it. Let's make it big and colourful. Forget the grey, forget the black, the darkness. Let's make it sumptuous and colourful and erotic and fun. And that's what they did with it. It's great.
Apparently, that's what they did for the costume design. They got for the costume design, they got a guy from Japan who'd never heard of Dracula and said, what do you think? And he came up, like you say, Mr. Gruff, I think you were getting to, with the armor. And that's why in the end sequence, he has much more of a geisha kind of robe at the end of the film. And same with when he's in the castle. Very, very Japanese designed, which is, again, super interesting.
Really odd, interesting, strange take on the whole story. And I love it.
So.
I love it.
My favorite version of Dracula.
Yep, me too.
However, I will say that up until the third episode, that BBC one from a couple of years ago came very close to being the second best.
That one, I hated that one. I hated it.
I laughed so hard all the way through it. The last episode, I didn't even find funny. I couldn't.
It's like
I couldn't find it. It was too much.
It didn't even like that. It's beyond jumping the shark with that third episode, isn't it? It's like it actually goes vertically into the outer atmosphere.
Takes the shark with it.
And just boils the entire planet to bedrock in its afterjet. It's just crazy madness.
It changes the rules. The third episode changes the rules from the first two. And that really wound us up, which is a shame because, as I say, I thought as a camp piece of stupid, it was brilliant.
I couldn't get past the campery of it. There was a the bit where in the first episode where he lets the wolves into the nunnery, and they're slaughtering the nuns, and he's sitting there going, "Ooh, like a cartoon character." I remember saying to my screen, "Oh, fuck off."
It's when he's sitting there naked, covered in blood, and just goes, Hello.
Just
What the hell is this shit?
it's so Moffat, isn't it?
It's no Leslie Nielsen dead and loving it though.
No.
It's getting there. It's close.
Another film that people seem to hate and I think is actually really quite funny.
What's that? Dead and loving it. It has its moments. It's not one of the better films they've done, but it has moments.
It's not even Spy Hard good, but the
No.
but when you have the Romanian insults being thrown back and forward, that one gets me. That's a really good joke.
I actually reread the book not too long ago of Dracula, and it's a difficult one because you're all right, Adam. It is just a giant tract of Victorian racism. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, there are things to like about it. I mean, one of the things I really like is the fact that Dracula's such a chatty Cathy in it.
Yeah.
He never shuts up. Like in the the opening sequence where you've got the opening sequence where it is directly from Bram Stoker's Dracula, where you've got Jonathan Harker on the way to the castle and it's all very gothic and dark and wonderful. The minute he gets to the castle, Dracula does not shut the hell up. He talks the entire time and he's constantly baiting Jonathan Harker. He's constantly saying these wry little things where he is suggesting what's going to happen to him. There's that whole thing, that classic line, oh, I never drink wine.
I never drink wine.
It's,
Shandy, on the other hand.
I just loved how chatty he was. I couldn't get over how sarcastic he is and how kind of like how much fun he's having being a vampire.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? The idea of the foreigner who his ways are completely different, and he kind of mocks the upright Englishman. But when you look at that through a modern viewpoint, he actually becomes this really interesting, fun character.
He actually becomes a fun character.
He's like quite unsettling.
Yeah.
But nowadays, he's like, actually, this is my boy.
Well, he becomes the most interesting character in it because all the others are boring as hell.
Yes, they are.
All the characters are boring as hell. Well, they're all carbon copies of one another. They all talk the same. They've all got the same voice, especially the women. The female characters are terrible in Dracula. They're absolutely atrocious.
Yeah, well, they're just cardboard cutouts. I realise I've made a mistake.
Oh.
The Bram Stoker's Dracula is actually my second favourite Dracula retelling because I'm going to put In the Shadow of the Vampire at the top because that film's amazing.
Are you sure you don't mean Blackula?
Blackula can stay at number 4 and Vampire in Brooklyn is at number 5.
Yeah!
Nobody's going for Blade 3 then.
No,
quite right as well.
I don't know. You have a Triple H with a tiny little vampire chihuahua. That was quite fun.
And Triple H in his tiny little vampire shirt. Yeah, no. I remember when that Dracula turned up, he was just like, well,
yeah, right.
You're just a chunk of human, so.
I was like, it's the boring guy from Prison Break.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He's so difficult to realise, though, Dracula is nowadays, because it's like we were saying, how do you do it and make him interesting? How do you do it in such a way that's surprising and isn't just an also-ran?
Well, what you don't do is you do that Dracula Origins or whatever it was called.
Oh.
The first time that Universal tried to start the Monster
Universe.
God,
yes,
yeah,
that was sure a film.
That was...
Yeah, it was just bad, wasn't it? I mean, it was just a bad film, you know?
I mean,
was it?
I'll go to town for the Tom Cruise version of The Mummy because I actually had a great time with it. It's bad, but I had a great time.
But you enjoyed it. Yeah, it's a bad bit of enjoyable work, but God, that Dracula film was just awful, wasn't it? It was just not good.
You know what you do? You blindfold your army and send your army in blindfolded. They don't run away. That nothing wrong would happen there. Nothing.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Shall we talk about some Warhammer guys?
Well, I mean, there's a nice lead in.
3 months.
There's a nice lead in. I mean, what's happened in that 3 months? We've had the Soul Blights.
Well, I was working this out of what the last thing we would have been talking about.
What was the last thing we did? I mean, I know Andy and I talked about the. We talked about like the lead into 3.0 with Age of Sigmar.
The last thing we did as a threesome was Kragnos. No, Kragnos had just come out.
Kragnos would have just hit. Yeah.
and I hadn't had a full chance because if you remember, my internet completely putted out.
Oh, yes!
I kept losing electricity,
That's
so
right.
I didn't finish the Be'lakor story. So with that being said, motherfucks, Be'lakor is the best thing Games Workshop have put out in 20 years.
That was a great book, wasn't it? It was a great book. I loved everything in it. I loved the stuff with the White Dwarf.
Oh yeah.
What the fuck was that? He's going to be a god, isn't he? He's going to be a god in the new edition. It's so clear.
Yeah, I mean, is it Grumbrindle or is it Grungy?
Grungy.
Who knows?
I think it's Grungy, isn't it?
Grumbrindle.
Is it Is it actually Grumbrindal? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Grumbrindle. I'm not entirely sure though, but that's just me.
Yeah,
I think it'd be a wise thing to do because I think it would annoy people if you brought in the White Dwarf and it not be Grumbrindle, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
But it's what Be'lakor says about him. Have you read the end of Kragnos? Yeah.
Yes.
You know when Kragnos is having a word with the Slanesh twins, a polite word, and they say to him something like, "Oh well, you were defeated by a Duardin. I mean, we're not going to talk to you," and he says, "That wasn't a Duardin. That was a god."
Yep.
You know. It's sort of, oh, okay. So clearly, one of the things they're going to do in 3.0 is push the dwarfs. They're going to have what the elves have had in the last edition.
From what I understand, the dwarves are going to get unified.
Yeah, that makes
just
sense
as well. Yeah,
that makes sense.
Because they haven't done anything with the Fire Slayers. Nothing.
No. So I think you'll get like Fire Slayer, Caradron, Dispossessed.
Yeah.
But my guess would be that there's going to be a whole new Duardin army coming.
Yeah, I think so too.
Well, we know that we know at least one Duardin army that's coming because of little rumor leaks.
Yeah,
and I'm all excited for the Oathbreakers.
Yeah,
So,
interesting.
Give me those Oathbreakers because that's in my wheelhouse. What's that? Dwarfs that have turned away from the entire pantheon of order. Dwarfs that have the Hobgrots that do work for them. Called the Oathbreakers?
Yeah.
Consider me interested and quite possibly erect.
As a very tall hat, yeah?
That's what I mean, yes. I mean, I'm all about the idea of getting some... Cause I don't think they'll go down tall hat. I think they'll go down the more...
they'll be like that chaos,
engineering.
like that dwarf that appears in the Chaos Cultist set. What are they called? The Iron Jolems, is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And as long as they've got tusks and a beard, I'm happy.
That one looks great. That one that's in that set
great.
looks wonderful. So if they're going to go down that route, then grand, you know?
Yeah. I mean, there's that one, and then there was another one, wasn't there, in another Warcry team?
I believe there was, yes.
So I thought there was only one.
No, there's one in the it's in one of the other Chaos cults. It's the
Spire
one,
something.
that's
Spire
right,
Tyrants.
the Spire Tyrants, the ones that come from the Varan Spire that fight
Yes.
in the gladiatorial pits.
Yep.
Okay.
There is a sort of chaosy dwarf character in that lot.
So gimme.
They've clearly been building towards it, and they're just testing. They were testing the waters, weren't they, with those sets to see.
Yes. Well, that's a lot of what they do. It's just testing waters and see what flies and what doesn't. And I'm still waiting for my Spindle drone army. Just
I
saying.
don't. Do you think that will happen now? The Blackstone Fortress seems to be done.
Well, Blackstone's Fortress is still being sold.
I don't think they're making anything new for it, though.
No, they're not making it
it's
anymore.
like
No,
it's finished. It's
Yeah.
it's like the continuity of it is finished, definitely.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, 40k seems to have taken a bit of a backseat of late. Really does.
It has, but it also seems to be gearing itself up
For some big releases.
Yeah.
So down
So-
the line.
What I was thinking we could do this evening, because we're actually doing an evening recording to peek behind the curtains. It's no longer a Sunday afternoon.
No,
Weird, hey?
bit different.
Yeah.
Oh, for us, not for them.
Not for them. No.
Yeah,
You
you'll still get
you can
this on
listen to
Monday,
it whenever
you know.
you want, can't you? You know?
Look at you sitting there listening. You're not sitting in this hot office. It's so hot.
It's very in the UK at the moment. This evening, it is sweltering. It's really unpleasant.
It's 41 degrees in Rhodes.
Yeah. Oh god.
So, I think what we'll do is if we start with 40k.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
Because the AOS stuff is going to take a lot longer to get through.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I'm going to just quickly throw out a little question to you both, a little serious question. And I'd like you to just respond in kind with the most calm response that you can think of. My question is, well, that Kill Team trailer didn't pull any punches, did it?
No, it was spectacular. I mean, really, really cool. Just the teasers for the orcs, obviously, it's like friggin' amazing. I'm not even an orc player. I've never collected the orcs, but my God, those minis are just spectacular, aren't they?
They really are. I mean, I've been umming and ahhing about the getting Kill Team.
Right.
Now, there's two things that... something that plays in its favour is that I really want to get into Kill Team because I love skirmish games. Skirmish games are my bread and butter. You get a good narrative and you don't have to spend that much money on getting an army, and you can kit bash the hell out of them. Right?
Yeah,
brilliant. Yeah. And then I saw the actual picture and I went, it's using the Warcry model.
Yeah.
It's got Warcry dice. Well...
yeah, it's going to be good, isn't it?
Coming.
It's going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, Warcry's a great game.
Translating that to 40k makes enormous amounts of sense.
Absolutely. Now, the downside to that is it costs money. Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
But my God, I was just taken. And also, I mean, the new the Astra Militarium stuff as well, they're awesome too.
Oh, the Death Guard. Not Death Guard, sorry.
The Death Corps. The Death Corps of Krieg. They're beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Again, not an army I collect. It's just, human beings, isn't it? So I'm not that bothered. But my God, they're lovely. They're absolutely lovely.
They've all got shovels.
I love it. Makes sense. They're going to be in trenches, aren't they?
Yep.
It was a good choice because they're like they're pretty much the fan favorite Imperial Guard faction, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Part of the army.
Pretty much, yeah. And also, like, aesthetically, they're just iconic. If you think of, like, an Astra Militaria soldier, they're kind of what you think of, aren't they? Them or a Catachan, like fighter,
Yeah. It's weird, isn't it? I mean, I think you can tell when people entered the hobby by what they think of when you say Imperial Guard.
Yeah, right.
You say Imperial Guard to me, and I think Yarrick and Catachan.
Yeah.
You say Imperial Guard to a lot of people, especially younger people.
It'll be the Cadians, won't it?
Yeah, Cadians. I mean, James, friend of the podcast, James, he's a big Cadia guy. I remember when Cadia went boom boom.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's a bit of a shame now, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I got a little message off him that just went,
Cadia's gone.
Bang.
To be fair, I mean, if you've been reading, like, the add-on books and whatnot, it does, parts of it exist.
Yeah.
There are chunks of it left out there.
Hurtling away, yeah. Well, yeah, because Fabius Bile went and sat on one for a bit,
he
didn't
he? He did, yeah. He set up a new base there, so bits of it exist. Chunks of it out there. Just bits of it,
I was talking to other friend of the podcast. I don't know why you reminded me of this, but I just wanted to share. I was talking to other friend of the podcast, Jai D, the other day. And as I was discussing, the idea of just being able to pulverize a planet with 3 asteroids came into mind, where you just space them so they're going to land 24 hours apart over 3 days, and that will just end a planet. Really simple. Just throw asteroids at it. Yeah.
Not outside the realms of possibility in 40k either.
Nah, I can imagine they've got asteroid movers.
I could see.
Efficient though. You want to blow up a planet, you want to blow it up fast.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
You want to do it fast before you can get a response from anyone, either defensive or anything else. You want to just get in there, blow up the planet, and be like, done, move on.
I think the closest I've seen in the fiction, barring the destruction of Cadia and whatnot, is it's that bit in the Black Legion book where one of Abaddon's sorcerers, Kane, psychically throws a gigantic space hulk into a planet.
Yeah.
And destroys like an entire continent. It's pretty epic.
I love that bit.
Iskander Kane, yeah, it's great, isn't it?
Yeah, I want more of those books.
He's working on the 3rd one.
Not fast enough.
I know. He is apparently working on the third one, though.
'Cause I want to both read that book and see the MS Paint cover that he makes.
Yeah, because they're always fun, aren't they?
Dembski Barton makes MS Paint covers for
It's
his books.
so funny. It's so
It's a
funny.
wonderful thing. There you go. So the kill team's looking really good. The orcs looking really good, but that's not the only orcs we're getting because the beast snaggers are coming. And
whole new subsection of orcs, and they look amazing.
they look incredible.
They are really aesthetically interesting, aren't they? With all like the bits of scrappy armor attached to them, and yeah, I love them. Absolutely love them. The squigs that have got bionic bits and bombs strapped to them and shit like that. Just love it.
I'm going to take so much time in having to get all those bionics and bombs and things off to make them AOSE. and I need them for my Beast Hunter orcs.
It's the influences on them as well. I mean, if you look at them, they've got influences from like all over history, some of these new orc models.
yeah.
Some of them, they look like French resistance fighters from like World War II. You know, they've got the balaclavas and whatnot. It's just incredible. I love them.
If you remember, going back maybe a year and a half or so, we were talking about a rumour where the orcs were going to return to that ununified, multiple clan look.
It certainly looks that way, doesn't it?
It went a different way to what I was expecting, but yeah, that's exactly what we seem to have got.
Oh yeah, they're scrappier looking as well, aren't they? Which I love. I really like that. The fact they're slightly less, like from model to model, they're slightly less unified than they used to be.
Yeah.
It looks like they're just using whatever they can get. Whatever's like around the battlefield, they'll just strap onto themselves and use it as armor, which I love. I absolutely love. Each of the miniatures is such an individual.
Yeah. That's what orcs need to look like as well.
Zodgrod Wartsnagger's back.
Yeah, and look at his hair, dude.
His hair squig is great. He's always had the most epic hair squigs imaginable, and they've just gone nuts with it. They've actually made it like a signature feature of the model.
That thing just looks incredible. It's so annoying that I'm gonna have to like buy a load of these to AOS because I need them for my AOS orcs. I need them.
It just looks like they've gone to town on everything. There's like loads of new vehicles that look amazing. There's like they've tried to unify them with the look of the new Thraka, haven't they? You know, to just make them more like part of an army he would come from. And by God, does it work? They're amazing. I just love them. I'm not an orc player, but I'm very jealous of their range, I can tell you.
Tell you one thing, if they put that same kind of care and thought into the Tyranids when they get their turn, I'm going to struggle.
Who feature quite heavily.
It only matters if they look like the first editions of the Tyranids. If they don't look like that, it doesn't matter. Garbage.
I hate to say it, Andy, but I agree with you 100%.
Yep. Why do you hate to agree with me?
Because Tyranids are great, but I want goop. I want goopy Tyranids. I don't
You want
like
the weird
this,
ones. You want the ununified factor of them.
I want ones where you can see the lungs underneath.
Like they were in Second Ed, yeah?
Yeah. Aye, from Rogue Trader onwards.
Right. I mean, I don't know what they are going to do with them, but it looks like they're on their way. I mean, they feature really heavily in the new White Dwarf, and the next Warzone book features them, doesn't it? So
yeah, I've actually got issues 466 sitting here next to me, which I shall read this evening.
some good stuff in there. Some very good stuff, yeah.
A little sad face as Jervis Johnson.
Lovely articles. Retires. Yeah. Well, that's kind of what it's about. It's almost like a retrospective of his entire career, and there's so much stuff in there I didn't know.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody knew. Like, I messaged you earlier, Adam. I didn't realise that Jervis Johnson has a credit on the Crystal Maze. Because apparently Games Workshop helped with designing some of the games in the Crystal Maze.
It's so bizarre.
What? I had no idea about that. I had no idea at all.
I'm starting to think that if you start looking through a lot of the sort of fringe and cult popularities of the early to mid 90s, I'm wondering how much there is of Games Workshop's fingerprints.
You'll probably find a lot of cross-pollination with like different talents, like because Games Workshop at that time was like from the late 1980s onward was a talent pool, wasn't it?
It was.
For I bet you'll find like cross-pollination, for example, with the video game industry. Quite a lot of it.
Yeah.
That wouldn't surprise me at all, and with TV and so on and so forth. But it's a fantastic issue. I mean, White Dwarf, we've spoken about this. It had its doldrums, of course, just like everything in Games Workshop has, but it's right back where it should be now. It's a great publication. It's a really, really good magazine.
It is. It's an absolutely fantastic magazine, and I mean the last couple of issues I've really enjoyed getting through.
Yeah, the articles. I mean, they've gone back to doing proper, consistent articles. The Tales of Four Warlords. Which that is an old concept. The first time they did a Tale of Four Warlords was way back when I was a teenager, I think.
Yes.
It was that long time ago.
Paul Sawyer, wouldn't it?
It would. It was Paul Sawyer. I can't remember what army he did for the life of me, but
Orcs.
It was.
He always did orcs.
Did he do orcs? Right.
He was always orcs.
He was either orcs or White Scars. I remember he had a very nice White Scars army at one point, which got the crap kicked out of it by a Chaos army in one of the White Dwarf battle reports, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
But yeah, it's a really cool issue. Well worth picking up.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading that tonight. So 40k in general.
Well, we're sort of into ninth ed now, aren't we?
Yeah, I was going to say over the last few months we've not recorded. 40k ninth ed has had its ability to get ground in. So, what are your guys' thoughts on it now that we're starting to see how it's looking, especially now that people are actually starting to get games in?
I'm liking it. Ninth Ed, I think, is really good myself. I think it's like, it takes everything that was good about 8th Ed, and 8th Ed was a big experiment, of course, because it was the biggest change that the game has had since 3rd Ed, It's the first time that the entire basis, the foundations of the rules have been overhauled to that extent since the transition from 2nd Ed to 3rd Ed. So it was a big experiment, and I think a very successful one. I think it did with the game what needed to be done, by and large. 9th Ed, I think what they're doing is taking that foundation and just building on it quite beautifully, I've got to say. I've got all the codices from 9th Ed, including the supplemental codices for the Space Marines Codex. There isn't a duff one.
Okay.
Thus far, they're all really good. There are some that are definitely, obviously, as we all know, if you've been anywhere near the internet, you'll know which ones. Drakari, obviously.
I try not to go near the internet.
You know what it is? To be fair, I think Andy and I may have discussed this on the last episode. Part of the problem that people are having with the Drukhari is it's not that the Drukhari are overpowered or anything like that, although that's the language a lot of people use. It's just that certain subsectors of the play base, people who play Space Marines by and large, just aren't used to losing to this degree. Certainly not to a Xenos army. And that's the truth of the matter. There are levelers happening at the moment. There are 2 codices that are kind of riding on top right now, and they're surprising because they're a Chaos Codex and a Xenos Codex, Death Guard and Drakari.
Yeah, if you
Who'd
go
have
back
thought
10
that?
years and told me that, I wouldn't have believed you.
No, I certainly wouldn't, because Chaos was kind of, we all know how Chaos was for a long time in 40k. It was really like scraping the bottom of the barrel. It was terrible. It was in a terrible place, Chaos was, for the longest time. And,
Terror campaign.
Oh, God, yeah. It's just like... And it took that transition to 8th Ed to start the healing process, I think. But now, the Death Guard Codex is amazing. It's just one of the best codices out there. Not just because of its power level or anything like that. It's just fun. It's great fun because you can make... Although it's a mono god codex, it's a Nurgle codex, it's so various. You can do so much with it and make so many different types of Death Guard army that all play slightly differently. It's an amazing piece of work. Mortarion is exactly where he should be at long last. He is a scary son of a bitch. Have you seen, there are articles on there are Reddit screeds, how do I take down Mortarion? Good luck.
Tank round after tank round
Good
after
luck.
tank round.
You take Drukhari, is what you do. Because Drukhari can take down anything. They're a fantastic army. But I'm liking it. I mean, they do need to do a bit more of what they're doing with AOS with it.
Yeah, moving the story forward.
Yeah. There needs to be more narrative involved in both the codices and in the campaign books. I mean, we've got Warzone Caradron, which is fine. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's doing lots of fun stuff. It's a fairly decent narrative. It's introducing lots of unusual little, like, niche army lists for you to mess about with, which is grand. That's what they should do. But unlike the big books for AOS, it's not really doing anything very much with the setting.
Yeah.
You know?
Which you compare it to the Broken Realms books, which
Right.
really moved everything forward.
Yep.
And shook the status quo beyond its foundations. Yeah.
Exactly.
I wish they'd changed that name. I wish they'd picked a different name, because every time anyone says Warzone Caradron, I just think of the Overlords.
Same.
And it's really annoying. I
Yeah.
don't like it.
It just doesn't like stick in your mind. Like you read the Broken Realms books, and because everything that happens is so significant, it's all there. I can remember like almost like blow for blow what happens from the beginning of the Broken Realms books to the end.
Yeah.
You know, I can't. If you ask me to describe what the story for Warzone Caradron is, and I've read the books, I've got them. I don't know. I know the forces that are involved. I know, roughly kind of what happens, but I don't really care that much, if I'm totally honest.
It was the same problem with
Vigilus.
Oh, Vigilus, yeah.
Yeah.
Vigilus ended up being meaningless.
Yeah, that's the
I hear a
problem.
lot of people have an issue with these, specifically the 40k books, because they feel that they're spending however much money it is for these books. I can't remember offhand, but they're effectively just buying them and getting a war scroll, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because there's no story there really, and there's nothing else apart from one or two war scrolls for your very specific army, and
That's kind of the
almost
problem.
a bit of a waste of money. It sounds like, unlike the Broken Realms, which, like you said, at the very least, if you're just game and you're not story, okay, you shouldn't be buying these, I suppose.
Yeah.
But if you're into the story, it sounds like these are always doing something, while the 40k versions, which we've mentioned so many times at this point, just don't do anything.
It's kind of true. It's kind of true. I mean, like, the Broken Realms books, there's stuff that's actually been shocking in the Broken Realms books. There's stuff where it's like, okay, it has changed everything.
I mean, just look at Be'lakor by itself. I mean, actually, just look at Marathi.
Look at Morathai. I mean, my God, the birth of a new
Marathi,
god, the release of Slaanesh, the conception of the Slaanesh twins, the breaking of the ties between the forces of order. There's so much going on there. It's unbelievable.
But from a narrative standpoint, that ends, and you've got this entire brand new state of play for the elven race, and then not only that, you've got all these little ties and little straggly loose ends which you can play around with, and then you get these really cool city war scroll armies, which you can use throughout. It's not tied to this one Warzone idea. It's here is something you could run,
and they even take the existing like battle tomes and move them forward significantly.
Yeah. But this is the weird thing when it comes to 40k and to AOS. AOS is building its history as it goes. The new version of AOS, the way that it tells its history, you recognise everything in the history because you've played it, you've seen it, you've been there as that has happened. And it's this wonderful thing. I was talking to James about it. Sorry, friend of the podcast, James. James Norfolk Sinnis. Check out his Stormcast, because he bought all of mine and now has the biggest Stormcast army in the world.
It's a good place to be, because they're getting a push in the new edition, aren't they?
Yes, they are. But the way it reads to him is that the Stormcast that you used to get, the design choices that were made in those Stormcast, that's how they look in myth. That's how the stories be told of them.
Yep.
And now what you're getting is what they actually look like.
What they really look like. And boy, howdy, do they look different.
And it's a beautiful thing. I mean, the only reason his mind's in that state is because the history of AOS is constantly being built. Time is moving on.
Yes, and it's a fair point as well, because like these books have actually changed the status quo of several armies, not least of which the Stormcast. I mean, like Be'lakor completely changes how the Stormcast operate. In the mortal realms. It puts them at a much greater threat, for one thing.
I'm trying to remember the exact line. Stormcast eternal, I shall put that name to the test.
Yeah. He's basically cut them off from Azir, hasn't he?
Yeah.
I was going to say, I thought the reason for the new look was because of like them having the new armor to get past this Be'lakor.
That's right. That's right.
Rather than them looking like this in reality versus in mythology.
It's a new armor type, isn't it? Which allows them to actually return to Azir. It's not as done and dusted as it used to be, by all accounts. There's going to be some problems with it. Their souls can still be snared by the forces of death or the forces of order or whatever, the forces of chaos rather. So yeah, it's very interesting. The way he does it as well. Oh, I couldn't put that down. You know, when you've got the fight between the honest to God space battle with the Tower of Zeech and the ships of the Seraphon.
Yeah, and then when they crash the Silver Tower back into reality and it gets swarmed by actual living Seraphon.
Right. It's incredible stuff. I mean, it crashes into Charmon, doesn't it?
Yes.
And it alters the topography of Charmon. This bow wave of magic just floods out across the entire realm. It's like this is the kind of stuff that you're getting in AOS, and it does kind of put 40k into the shade a little bit.
Absolutely, it does. 40k is looking really old and tired as a setting, which is upsetting.
It's a shame. It's a shame.
Do you think the reason is I hate to say this, is because they almost don't need to try with 40k, but they do need to push harder with AOS because, generally speaking, most people are going to always buy science fiction. That's always been the case versus fantasy, so they have to kind of go all out for fantasy. With 40k, they can almost put that on the back burner and go, it'll almost just sell itself.
You're probably right a little bit on that, Andy. I think you're probably right on that.
It's a cynical way of thinking about it.
But it's probably true.
Yeah.
It's probably true if you're looking at it from a pure marketing perspective. 40k is always going to be the biggest seller because it just is. You know, it just
people
is.
love sci-fi. It makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think in a lot of ways, sci-fi is easier to get into than fantasy, especially when you've got the high fantasy of Age of Sigmar.
Yeah.
40k is literally, here are the humans, here are the superpowered humans, here are aliens. Yeah, that's, as a base level concept, that's a really easy one to sell.
Yeah.
You try to sell AOS to people, so what's the baseline?
Because you've really got to go back and explain a lot, haven't you, with AOS as well? Because, of course, there's all this reference now to the world that was, and the cataclysms, and the gods, and how they fared, and all this stuff. I mean, that is actually a really good hook in AOS, I find. I do love... I was rereading my Hedonites, the new Hedonites book recently, which, by the way, is one of my favourites. It's such a stunner of a book, that is. And it refers constantly back to what Slaanesh was doing at the end of the world that was. You know, when Slaanesh had devoured all the elven souls and actually swelled to the point where it overpowered all the other chaos powers put together. It actually overshadowed all of them at one time.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting, isn't it? It's kind of fun.
I think the really interesting thing about... the gods in AOS have personality.
They really do. And they're active, aren't they? They're like there. They obviously, I mean, some of them you can play as.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, we got the twins. You know, they are the arms of Slaanesh, or literally the hands of Slaanesh.
Literally the hands of Slaanesh. So Dexessa and Sinestra, the left and right hand of Slaanesh. Yeah.
I swear to God, those characters are visionaries.
They are... those models are some of the best models Games Workshop have done in years.
I am never buying them.
They are beautiful, aren't they?
You don't want to convert them into orcs?
Best of luck.
They are incredible. I find them incredibly off-putting in this weird way of I could never give those things justice.
They're so good, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Those like peacock feathers and everything. I mean, it's been no secret that Games Workshop have kind of struggled with how they portray Slaanesh over the years.
Yeah.
Because they haven't really known what to do with it.
Yeah, it's either go right headlong into the kink and fetish feel, or try to do something a bit more abstract.
Right.
But if you try to do something more abstract in a 3D model, the message gets lost.
It gets lost, yeah. But it seems that they've hit the perfect balance with the Hedonites. The Hedonites minis are all 201 absolutely stunning.
Well, I think they managed to find that with the Warcry band. Not the Warcry band, the Underworld's band.
Yeah.
That's
definitely.
When they really hit it right on the head, and they've kept that and ran with it.
Yeah, all of those weird influences they've got going on, the slightly like 1001 Arabian Nights thing.
Oh, yeah.
Makes perfect sense. I mean, those stories, if anyone, by the way, anyone who's ever read them knows exactly what I'm talking about. The eroticism in those stories is just unbelievable. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Well, that was the point of them, wasn't it? It was to keep the Sultan interested.
Right.
Nothing's going to keep a Sultan more interested in a little hot vocal porn.
Right. And I just love the fact they've gone there with the mortal Hedonites of Slaanesh. I mean, they have that sort of classic influence. A lot of them clearly derive influence from very old Slaanesh models. You know, they've got the leather and the straps and the studs and all that kind of thing. The Slaangor in particular.
Yes.
They're some of my favourites. I love the Slaangor to bits. I think they are beautiful. The Lords of Pain, clearly, Cenobite, you know.
Where's Wishmaster?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you look at the Shard Speaker, it's got a it's got a djinnish quality about it, doesn't it?
Ladies and gentlemen out there listening to this show, if you can 3D print me Andrew Divoff's head to go onto the Shard Speaker, I will be in your debt forever.
No, you can't do that, because if you do that, you summon him, and that's a dangerous thing to do.
You don't. Yeah, you got to be very careful with that one.
And I don't mean summon the djinn. I mean summon Andrew.
Which is even scarier.
Exactly.
He'll stand there and talk to me in his smoky voice.
Yeah.
Who has a scarier face, him or Willem Dafoe? Who has the scarier face?
Ah, God. Defoe's is more goblin-esque, isn't it? You know, I don't know.
If you asked me to pick up the serial killer between the two of them, I would automatically think that it would be Dafoe.
I'm just saying, if you accidentally turn down a dark alley where you live, Mr. Gruff, who are you more fearful to see poorly lit at the end of the street?
It depends on which incarnation you're getting. I mean, if it's like Willem Dafoe from The Lighthouse, then him.
No, it's just Willem Dafoe and Andrew.
Oh, God, right, okay.
But they're actually doing that fight from They Live, where they're trying to get each other to wear sunglasses.
Oh, God, forever beating the shit out of each other. It's a good fight.
It's a good fight, it is.
I'm going to go for Divoff, because I don't know what's under his shirt. I've seen Willem Dafoe's nipples far too many times.
Yeah. I mean, all I'm thinking of now is that speech that he's got in The Lighthouse. You know, the big one.
Yes.
You're fond of me lobster, though, ain't you? I seen it.
Unfortunately, all I'm thinking of now is that terrible Basic Instinct knockoff that he made of Madonna.
Oh, don't. No, I don't even want to go there.
It was cold.
What was going on in the mid-1990s with like big budget softcore?
I don't know.
What was going on?
You had Basic Instinct. You had Slither.
Showgirls.
Yeah, that was just boring as well.
Right.
Showgirls.
Yeah, if you're going to watch Showgirls, you just watch the one scene where she goes for it like some kind of epileptic dolphin.
Hell yeah, that's what you did as a teenage lad. Hell yeah.
And then you sit and ponder the amazing line of everybody got AIDS and shit.
Wow, yeah.
Which literally stayed with me for days as I just pondered it.
Wow.
But why? Why? Why would you say that?
Paul Verhoeven, man. I mean... Can you seriously reconcile the guy who made RoboCop with the guy who made Showgirls?
I can see that RoboCop was the film that he was allowed to make, and Showgirls was the film that had a lot of studio interference, I think.
Right.
I mean, he made Starship Troopers, the greatest film ever made.
Right, yeah. Another great piece of satire.
A film that people keep getting the wrong idea about.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Oh, God, let's not even talk about the right's propensity to take what is a satire of it and then actually adopt it as a as a sort of legitimate symbol.
Andy,
doesn't
enemy of the podcast Mikey hate Starship Troopers?
I think he does. I'm pretty sure he hates it.
Unlike friend of the podcast James. Mikey, enemy of the podcast, hates Starship Troopers.
Funnily enough, I do recall, I think it was back in third ed when the big redesign of the Tyranids happened.
Mm-hmm.
There was actually a battle report where it was inspired by that scene from Starship Troopers, one of the battle scenes.
Yeah, the
cute.
siege. Yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
I mean, the bugs are. I mean, if you want to look at how a Tyranid, like a fight between Tyranids and Astra Militaria would look, watch Starship Troopers, and it's kind of what it would look like.
I remember little young Adam, many years ago, in his need to make games, designed a game that combined Starship Troopers with Event Horizon. And I realised I'd made 40k.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, that's 40k, isn't it? Like, on the other hand, if you want to see what it would look like with Imperial investigators, falling into a warp anomaly or something, then that's Event Horizon, isn't it?
I will say as well, for everybody out there, don't come at me. Event Horizon is not a 40k film. It was never meant to be a 40k film. I know that a lot of people have jumped on that rumour. It is not a 40k film.
No.
Oh no, it's nice to see the connections, but it's not.
No, it was never meant to be, but it kind of fits if you want it to.
Yeah. I mean, the writer, the writer who wrote the script for it, he is a bit of a tabletop gamer.
Oh, right.
A huge fan of the Mutant Chronicles, for example. Which is why there's a Mutant Chronicles film.
Okay. I'll just,
Nobody knew about it, did you?
No.
Mutant Chronicles film starring Thomas Jane? Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah, it exists.
Nope. I had no idea. I'll watch anything with Sam Neill, quite frankly. I think he's great.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You and Abby both.
I think he's fantastic.
Which is why everyone should watch The Hunt for the Wilder People, which is the most charming movie ever made. But anyhow, Hunt for the Wilder People has nothing to do with 40k.
No.
But then again, that's why you listen to us.
What else is going on in 40k? I mean, we've had... we've got 2 new codices coming, haven't we? Barring the orcs, we've had it absolutely confirmed that reasonably soon we've got the Grey Knights coming.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the Thousand Sons.
And then Black Templars as well.
And the Black Templars as well, yeah. So, are the Black Templars going to be like a whole codex, or are they going to be a supplemental codex?
Considering how far removed they are from normal, well, I say normal, the sort of ultramarine levels of baseline Adeptus, I would say they're going to be their own codex.
Interesting, because, I mean, really fascinating. One of the big changes for Space Marines in the 9th edition is even the more deviant codices have been supplemental rather than their own.
That's true, actually.
For the first time ever, like the Dark Angels and the Space Wolves even are supplemental codices rather than being codices in and of themselves.
Do you think that was almost an accident? Do you think they, at some point, decided we need full codexes for some of them, but they'd already got the Space Wolves done?
No, I think it's more along, from what I was reading, and it makes a lot of sense, is they didn't want to, like... You had this situation where when they had their own codices, there was a lot of overlap with the sort of core Space Marine codex, but also a lot of units that were excluded. So you had this situation where there were units in the Prime Space Marine Codex that weren't available to Space Wolves, but they really should be, and there was stuff that was in the Space Wolves Codex that kind of didn't tie in properly, So what they've done effectively is made them all supplemental codices so that you can take anything in any Space Marine army, apart from like the stuff that's very chapter specific. And it just opens up the gates, It means that you can take any Primaris unit, for example, in any Space Marine army, which you couldn't before.
I would just like to just drop in a little message for both of you. My wife has just sent me a message saying, "Say hi to George. Tell Andy he is a disappointment and I expect his letter of resignation on my desk on Monday."
Jesus, God, harsh.
Wow.
Wow.
Fair comment.
Cripes. Hi, but wow. Wow.
I think she's still upset that you didn't come to the Noodle House with us.
Hang on. Didn't your day end in violence that day?
What?
Yes, I had to take Abby to A&E because she scratched her actual eye.
Oh yes,
No.
I remember.
I thought it was your child that scratched her eye.
Yeah.
Yes, he stuck his entire finger in her eye.
He actually scratched the cornea, didn't he?
Yes.
Jesus God.
See, I wasn't lying when I said the day ended with violence.
Oh yes. Yeah, in the Metro Centre for exactly 2 hours.
Wow.
That was worth it.
Oh, I thought you meant your child had the finger in the eye for 2 hours.
Just wiggling about.
She's just there screaming, and you just stand there going, "Well, he's just got to get it out of his system."
He'll learn.
But I mean, it is interesting because, like, we're going to be seeing with the Grey Knights and the Thousand Sons, we haven't had any of the big psychic armies in Ninth Ed yet.
No.
So now we're going to see how that works.
I wonder if the Grey Knights are going to get a little bit of a shift about.
Yes, I think they probably are.
In terms of what?
In terms of their narrative, shall we say.
Okay, narrative-wise.
So how the Grey Knights... I'm trying to think of a way of putting it. The Grey Knights seem a little... almost out of place in Ninth Ed 40k. Just because they are demon hunters, you know.
Right.
So how many demon-only armies do you get in 40k these days?
Not that many. I mean, there are like, I mean, one of the big narrative shifts they could do with them is, since they are releasing them alongside the Thousand Sons, just rejig them slightly so that they now hunt the demon primarchs. Or that they are the bulwark against the demon primarchs.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, we know they've got tenure for that. I mean, like, it was the Grey Knights that banished Angron from Armageddon, wasn't it?
True enough, yeah.
Like entire cohorts of them. It took like entire cohorts of the Grey Knights to do it, but they did do it eventually.
That to me sounds like a really good way of doing it. Actually, just like tying into, because you're tying it into existing fiction, so
makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, I'm a little like apprehensive about the whole situation because I love the Thousand Sons. They're one of my favorite armies in 40k, and I'm hoping they get as much attention as the Death Guard did in terms of their codex. I want to see more. I want to see all those layers of narrative. You know, the way that the Death Guard have all that wonderful stuff where you can create your own toxins and your own viruses and all this crap. I want to see that in the Thousand Sons. I really do. I want to see like some unique psychic chicanery. I mean, for my money, they kind of, because they're sorcerers, they're not psychers in the same way that most other psychers are. They kind of need their own little psychic rules, you know?
Yes.
I'd
agree with you there. They can need their own psychic discipline.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely they do. I want to see a bit more of that. You know, I mean, psychically, they should be the army. They should be the one that they're not that good in many of the other phases, but in the psychic phase, they desolate, you know?
Yeah.
That's what they should be like.
I wonder then if they're going to have much of a like an allied contingent attached to them.
Dunno. No idea. It's a weird one with the Thousand Sons because we know they're going to have a new character. They've got a new character model who's called the Infernal something or other. Sounds like he is like a demon.
Infernal Andrew Divoff.
It sounds like he's a demon answer of some description, and I think that's where they're going with the Thousand Sons. I think they're going to be very demon heavy, unlike the Death Guard. Interestingly,
I can imagine that the Thousand Sons will be a lot of summoning.
Yeah, I think so.
So most of the army isn't on the battlefield, but demons get summoned as the army goes on. Because I'm trying to think who had it. The points build as the game goes on. You get more points for summons.
That was, I mean, all of the Chaos armies in AOS have it, but the Chaos Space Marines used to do that once upon a time, way back when.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking of.
If you performed, it was back in Second Ed, that was. If you performed certain actions on the battlefield, then you got different points for each of the different gods, and you could summon different units depending on how many points you got.
Yes, that's right.
Either that, or you could use possession rules. So you could actually have a character be possessed by a greater demon if you wanted to, which was a lot of fun because you'd have a Chaos Lord suddenly bulge out of his armor and there'd be like a great unclean one in his place or something. Obviously, it would kill the Chaos Lord, which is much to his chagrin. But you'd have a great unclean one, which was always a good thing.
It's always good to have a great unclean one. I mean, the weekly shop to Tesco's, great unclean one.
What, back in Second Ed? Back in Second Ed, greater demons could take down armies on their own.
I remember, yeah. I mean, the Bloodthirster was...
The Bloodthirster was the shit back then.
Yes. Yeah,
Bloodthirster was like... It was like there weren't Primarchs back then on the battlefield, but the Bloodthirster would have been the equivalent of them.
Mm-hmm.
Could literally kill armies on its own.
Yeah, I remember. When your opponent put a Bloodthirster down, you just packed your army up and left.
The only thing that I can think of that was like a one-on-one equivalent for it was the Carnifex.
Yes. Yeah, they needed the Carnifex or something disrupting.
Yeah, the Carnifex was a bastard back in the day. It was Screamer Killer, as it was.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Andy just smiled.
Yeah, the Screamer Killer. I love that old model. It was a pain to put together, but I really like it.
Mm-hmm. They should really just bring that back out in Legends. I'd buy it in resin.
Make a new one. Don't be a coward.
I mean, I love the fact that, like, when they redesigned the Carnifex for the newer editions, like in Third Ed, the Carnifex itself, like that build, kind of went away, and then they brought it back later as a distinct entry. So you can now actually take an actual Screamer Killer Carnifex as it used to be, with all the 4 scythe arms and the bioplasma from its mouth.
I mean, I think that's the trouble with Tyranids. You just don't get bioplasma from the mouth anymore.
That's a nice sort of old man moan. I like that. It's trouble with Tyranids, isn't it, these days? You just don't get the bioplasma from the mouth anymore like you used to.
Damn floating zonothropes, get off my lawn.
Yeah, do you remember when they used to walk?
Yep, I remember when they used to walk.
When they had the big silly heads and the chicken bodies.
Yeah, but now look at them, they're just lazy. That's what I say, they're just lazy.
They're just lazy now.
In my day, they walked. Nowadays, they just float.
None of this fly-in hive tyrant nonsense.
In my day, the hive tyrant looked like it came from a different army and was painted in neon.
Yeah. God, I remember when they did that back in Second Ed, when the Tyranids were completely cohered as a race and redesigned. Mm-hmm. It was a big event. It was a big thing because they were almost like a new army,
Yeah, well, they pretty much were. They took it right back to basics and rebuilt everything. And then they made the Biovores, and everyone just went, say what now?
Yeah, right. And they were evil.
Yes.
They were like one of the nastiest armies in Second Ed, like bar none.
Oh, they were murderous. I mean, I think it was actually Third. Yeah, it was Third Ed that they did it in. Because Second Ed, they were still goopy. Mm-hmm. But then they brought the stuff like the Tyrant Guard, which was meant to be what happens when they got hands on Space Marines.
Space Marines, that's right.
And you just looked at them and went, they look great, but they're not Tyranids, they're not goopy.
Yeah, that was Third Ed. In fact, the Tyrant Guard came a little later. I think the Tyrant Guard were Fourth Ed.
Were they? Jeez.
Yeah, the Tyrant Guard were like a new thing in Fourth Ed. Because in Fourth Ed, they started doing this weird thing where they were like trying to justify all the different subspecies. So the Zoanthropes are what happened when they got hold of Eldar.
Yeah.
The Biovores are what happened when they got hold of Orc DNA for some reason.
That makes no sense.
Doesn't make any sense. They've dropped it completely now, by the way. There's no suggestion of any of this now. Mm-hmm. It's all been completely dropped, which makes sense because it's too simplistic. It's too sort of 1 + 1 = 2. Yeah. It doesn't really work. But that's what they did in Fourth Ed for some reason. Everything had to be justified.
How good would it be if the next Codex Tyranids was just you had the army and you had each unit entry, but you had to roll a d6 to see what it looked like.
Oh, that'd be so. Well, they almost went there. With I think it was the Fourth Ed Chaos Code, Fourth Ed Tyranid Codex, because the Fourth Ed Tyranid Codex, you had each of your basic army list entries. So you had like your Termagants, your Hormagaunts, your Gene Stealers, and then you had these ridiculous lists of biomorphs they could have. So you could create your own Tyranid species. That was the entire emphasis behind that codex, and I tell you, it was brilliant.
Yeah, then Matt Ward got his hands on it and made them really unmutable.
Ridiculous. Yeah, made them really boring. It's such a sad thing. You literally used to be able to get Gene Stealers that had Venom cannons.
Yes, I remember.
And like Termagants that had Venom cannons. And it was like, whoa, what?
Yeah. it went a little bit too far in that direction, I think. But I quite like the idea of you get a Tyranid army and you get the kit, but you have to roll d6 to see how you're going to build it.
It's kind of fun. It is.
Why's he got 2 heads?
Yeah, they'll never do that, but it is kind of fun.
It'd be absolutely hilarious. I demand it to happen. Listen to me, James Workshop. I'll make you money.
I mean, have you seen like the latest Warzone Caradron, which has Baelacor in it?
No, actually, I haven't.
Yeah, Baelacor appears. It's the way they're introducing Baelacor, like with his big new miniature into 40k, and there's a really odd army list associated with him. It combines Chaos Space Marines and Demons, both codices that aren't out yet in 9th Ed.
Huh.
Really strange. I don't know whether that presages them turning up or what, but it's peculiar, you know?
It'll be interesting to see how it fits in with the codexes when they come out. I mean, is it going to be is it going to be a mass difference? This is Bellacor's version, or is it going to be...
Yeah, it's peculiar, isn't it? It is very, very odd. But apparently the book also has updates for all of the Chaos Space Marines, which kind of suggests to me that book is a long way off yet, which is fine, by the way. Some people are complaining about that. I'm quite happy about that, because that says to me they've realised that they need to do something quite drastic with Chaos Space Marines in 40k, and they're taking their time with it. Fine, go for it.
Yeah.
That's fine by me.
All good with that.
Yep.
Shall we move into AOS then? Because I think.
Oh wow! Let's. Where do you even start?
So what we do is we start by saying Kragnos. That was the last thing that came out before we went on hiatus, and Kragnos is it's not as good as Be'lakor.
No, it's not as good as Be'lakor, but bloody hell, it is good, isn't it? I mean, Croak's in it.
Yeah, but I was going to say, but that's like saying that my little bit of gold here has a bit of tarnish on it.
Right. I mean, Croak's in it, and Croak is amazing. I love the way Croak operates in it. You know,
one word, Gordrak.
Gordrak's in it, yes, because you were a bit worried that they were going to sideline Gordrak, weren't you?
Yeah. Oh no. Oh, they put Gordrak front and center, and they made him amazing.
He's got a bit of a part to play with regards to Kragnos, hasn't he? You know.
He has. He goes to try and punch the hell out.
He tries to punch Kragnos. I mean, you've got to give it to him. That's brave.
I mean, that fight between Gordrak and Kragnos it's visceral. It's
pretty
real
good.
Nice.
It's pretty good.
It's the bit where it talks about the Maw Crusher's back bending against the mountain. It's oh, jeez.
It's really cool. I love the way they portray Kragnos as well. He's like he's probably the most elemental of all the gods, isn't he?
Yes, absolutely.
Like he's got no plans or direction or anything really. No. He just does. He just is. He is just an elemental force of destruction. Yeah. And I kind of love it, I've got to say.
The idea of this creature just turning his head towards the nearest area of civilization and just heads towards it.
Yes, because he is like antithetically opposed to the notion of civilization, isn't he?
Yeah.
I just kind of love it. What struck me in the book, of course, it is the thing that's going to get me, the way the Slaanesh twins are portrayed. Love it. Love it. The way they're very ambiguous, like it describes them being like pained by one another's existence, but also adoring it at the same time.
Yeah.
Love it. Pleasure and pain together. It's wonderful. And you've also got the way they enter Excelsis. I loved it. Another new note in Slaanesh. I mean, Slaanesh has got all the tunes in AOS, hasn't it? As the Chaos Gods go, Slaanesh has got like the best narrative, most involved in the background, definitely the most active of the gods, despite being chained up. You know?
That fits. The entire point of 3.0 is that civilization is spreading out. You know, it's trying to take root. You know, trying to take hold in a way that it's not been able to do before.
Exactly.
So the idea of Slaanesh gaining power from that
makes sense.
A lot of sense.
Because Slaanesh, alongside Tzeentch, is the chaos power that most revels in civilization. Of course, it's a product of civilization. You know, Slaanesh's cults prosper in civilization. So. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense for Slaanesh to be the more powerful one now.
What I found quite funny is that my two favourite cities, it's weird having two favourite fictional cities in AOS, but I do. It was Ironguard and Excelsis.
What's happened to them?
Yeah. So when Excelsis started getting mentioned in Kragnos, I was sitting there going, oh no.
Oh, yeah.
Oh no.
Oh, yeah.
Oh dear.
Yes.
So yeah, I have no favourite cities left.
No. No, clearly. I love the way as well, I mean, spoilers, by the way, guys, we are going to assume you've read these books. The way Morathai and Croak trick Kragnos at the end. Mm-hmm. Because they can't defeat him. They realise, although Morathai has a good go, doesn't she?
Oh, yeah.
The bit where her shadow form attacks Kragnos, I loved that.
I mean, to me, that was up there with the Oleander sword in Be'lakor. You know, it's such a wonderful moment, and you can see every heartbeat of it.
Yeah, it's the way that it's so cinematic. The way, like, her normal form, like, taunts him. And he's barreling towards her, and then the shadow form just barrels into him. Mm-hmm. Loved it to bits.
And so, are we getting actual Draconith at some point then?
It does feel that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you're kind of left with, all right, so the Seraphon have been breeding god dragons.
Feels that way. Yeah,
right.
Kragnos is just a giant tease for 3.0, isn't it? They are setting up so much. It's unbelievable. Like the bit at the end where you've got like the trial of Morathai. Mm-hmm. Because now everybody knows. The cat's out of the bag. Everybody knows, and she doesn't care. I love the way she says to the Stormcast Eternal that's basically leveling the charges at her. It's like, I'm a goddess. I do what I like.
You can't stop me, little man.
Yeah. I'm a goddess. I operate on like a level that you can't even comprehend. So sod off. You know. And then you've got Grugni turning up and saying, "Look, stop arguing. There's stuff to do. All right."
Mm-hmm. Well, and he's off making his own army of dwarfs, I'm telling you now.
I love the way they thematically oppose Grugni to Kragnos. Mm-hmm. Because he's the maker. He's the maker god, like as the dwarfs would be. He's the smith god. You know, he's essentially Vorl, isn't he? You know, which it's really cool.
Yeah,
it's
got the
really
maker
cool.
and the breaker. All at the same time. Yeah, and it's. I really do think this is going to be the AOS, the dwarves.
Mm-hmm, definitely. I mean, I really like the way 3.0 is shaping up at the moment. It's definitely the most different version of AOS.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
There's a lot more going on. There's a lot more in the way of rules, for one thing.
There is, yeah. So, shall we get into 3.0? Because I don't know, Andy, how much of 3.0 have you kind of paid attention to?
In terms of what?
The narrative in the game itself, and
we'll
start with the release. We'll start off with the release, the Dominion box set.
Yeah, with those wonderful new. What are they called? The new orcs?
The Cruel Boys.
The Cruel Boys, which are aesthetically so different from pretty much any of the orcs we've ever had in the fantasy system.
No. It's right. The Cruel Boys hold a really weird place in my head, right? Because they are second edition Warhammer Fantasy Battle orcs.
Right.
They have the signals, they have the sigils, they have the symbology, they have the armor. I mean, they look like Ian Miller painted.
Yeah, they're like mingled with slightly Lord of the Rings-ish orcs. They've got that feeling about them.
Yeah, and I mean, if somebody at some point brought out a ship that was just flying through the air for them, I wouldn't be surprised, because that's what they feel like. They feel like that Warhammer Fantasy roleplay version of the orcs that way back when. You know,
I love those big swamp monsters that they ride. Mm-hmm. Love them.
So with everything that I've just said, why don't I love them?
Yeah, because they're not orcs. Because they're not the orcs that you know and love.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a really weird bit. I like everything about them, but the whole leaves me really cold.
It doesn't work for you, yeah.
It doesn't. It should. Everything about them should work, but I think a big problem is that I've spent so much time with the Iron Jaws.
Right.
These guys don't look right. They don't.
It does it does feel like they are deliberately trying to move away from that Iron Jaws aesthetic, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, because that's their 40k orcs.
Yeah, true.
And that's exactly what they're doing. They're moving the orcs in AOS into their own thing, and moving the 40k orcs into their own thing. And
Are you suggesting that they're going to get rid of the Iron Jaws?
They're not going to get rid of them. They're just not going to move them forward.
Yeah, I think they're probably going to sideline them a little bit, just shove them out of the limelight a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. I think once Gordrak's story is done,
you
probably won't see a huge amount more for the Iron Jaws, which is a shame, because I love
that's
the Iron
true.
Jaws.
I think that's probably true.
Yeah, it's a really weird one for me, because it soured my feelings on Dominion.
Right.
But I've now got the book, and the book is great. The book is gorgeous, and it is beautiful, and I love everything in it.
Loads going on, isn't there?
I love the way it sets everything out. It's absolutely wonderful. And if you'd said to me before its release, you'll like the Stormcast more than you'll like the Orcs.
Right, the new Stormcast are beautiful.
Oh, they are. They're absolutely gorgeous.
They're absolutely beautiful. They're more knightly than they used to be, aren't they? They've got this sort of like the armor's got like derives influence from like medieval Germanic armor now.
It does. There's also a very large Norwegian contingent to it, which is tying into the Umbogan.
Right, it's so weird. I love it though. That new character, the angelic one. Oh, love her. Love her. I want to turn her into something Slaanesh.
It's a weird one because I don't know how all the armies look yet in 3.0. But I've read a lot that the Nighthaunt take a serious battering nowadays.
Yeah, but then again, I think the Nighthaunt are probably due for a new book very soon.
Yeah, they've been crap since their.
I was going to say,
They've
to be
never
fair,
been good.
they've never been that great, have they?
No.
The Hedonites are still doing very well.
Yeah.
The Hedonites are still doing very well. They tried to tone them down and it didn't work. You know what the big problem is? They're really fast. They're like ridiculously fast, and they can put out so many attacks in one round of combat. It's not even funny. It's not even funny. The Soul Blights, obviously, they're doing well because that battle tome was kind of tailored for third. It's clearly tailored for third ed, you know.
Absolutely. Andy, you've got the Soul Blight book, haven't you?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, using that as an idea, how are you feeling about 3.0?
Well, I haven't actually looked too much of the rules. Usually when I look at the stuff, I just look at the story because I know I'm not going to be able to play it, so it's kind of redundant to look at the rules at the moment.
The rules for the Soul Blights are really good. I mean, like, I'm struggling not to sort of start putting together a little Verkos army because I love them. I love them to bits.
And this is where Andy just starts taking like photos and scans of the book and just like sending them to you.
Don't you? I thought you had it for some reason, George.
I have got it.
Yeah, I thought you did.
Yeah, I've got the Soul Blight Gravelords book. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
it's a fantastic book. I mean, it's compellingly brilliant. I don't know which ones I like better. It's either the Avangori, I think, are fantastic, and like the notion you can put together this undead army of just big monsters. And it's nothing but big monsters, like gigantic monsters. There's nothing else in it. I love that. But the Verkos, I love their background. I think that the notion they're not even like normal vampires, you know? They're not vampires in the sense that all the other vampires are. They don't derive their vampirism from like the formula that was created in ancient Nehekhara. They derive it from a kind of metaphysical curse.
It's from a god beast.
It is. It's from a series of god beasts. Yeah, that's right.
Ooh,
and
that.
they're not just werewolves. Their aspects, their animal aspects, depends on like loads of different factors, like what spirit gives them the curse and how they happen to die. So you've got the Rat Prince, for example. And the Rat Prince is the Rat Prince because when he was given the blood kiss, he ran away and hid in like this pile of corpses, and the rats all gnawed on him and turned him into the Rat Prince.
That's such a wonderfully Spider-Man way of doing things.
It's great, isn't it? I just love it. I love it. There's that I can't remember her name, but that noble lady who has like a bat-like aspect to her.
Yes.
You can do so much with them. You can, like, any sort of animal aspect that comes into your mind, or which you can derive from mythology, for example, you can do it. You can make these vampires into it.
I can't remember if it was on a recording or if it was just on the messages, but we were talking about making spider vampires, weren't we?
I love that myself. It's a really cool book, and it really takes like the undead in a different direction.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is lovely to see. Lovely to see. Nagash is in it, Nagash is there. What they've done is created a unified war scroll for him. So this war scroll is the one that you will use in all the undead armies.
All right.
So that's very cool, and he's still badass. I mean, he's still obviously, he's a god, and he's kind of an auto win thing, but you kind of expect that if you're going to put Nagash down,
Yeah, I mean the sheer amount of point costs you'd need to put something down on the table to
right.
have Nagash, it's
you kind of expect
big
it.
armies.
That's the way it should be. I mean, he's still got his hand of dust, and it still does exactly the same thing. It's an auto kill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he's still at least as good as Teclis at his magic and, arcane chicanery.
How are you guys feeling about the fact that the board size shrank and the point increase went up?
Yeah, that's interesting. So the armies are going to be smaller now.
Yeah, yeah. Which
I think that's a deliberate thing. It's to make it more viable for people, and in some ways, I guess, to make it almost more skirmishy.
Yes, I think that's the case. It seems, I don't know why, but it seems like AOS, they're really pushing for this narrative thing.
Yeah.
It's more about the narrative than playing the big battles, And
is that a good idea, though? Shouldn't there be at least the option for the big battles? Because we already have the skirmish game.
You're
so
probably right.
Have something a bit more different?
Yeah,
the skirmish game uses a completely different rule set.
But the idea is still a skirmish-based game, a small... That's what I mean. We're still having small games. So wouldn't it be a better idea to have a... Not to the scale of fantasy, which was too big.
Which was way too big and also boring, let's face it,
Yeah.
Yeah, when you got to the end of Warhammer Fantasy, it was a slog to play.
Oh, regiment-based combat. Bore the arse off me!
I think there's a time and place for it, but it wasn't the way that whatever the final version of Warhammer Fantasy Battle was.
Oh, it was a mess.
9th, 10th, whatever it was.
It was 9th, wasn't it?
9th.
No, was it 9th?
Could have been 8th, because there is a new version called the 9th Age.
It was a mess. It was a mess.
Yeah, it was difficult. Very difficult to play. But I think basically the idea is that you've got the board size, and then you double the board size for double the points, so to speak. So that you just put the more boards down for the more points you've got.
That's it.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
It seems to me that what they're trying to do is make it quicker, aren't they? They're trying to make it a bit more dynamic, I mean, it's got pros and cons, hasn't it? It's one of those things where it's neither a good thing nor a bad thing, essentially. I mean, one of the pros is, of course, it doesn't take as much time to paint to put together. You can just have a battle with a very small number of units.
The fact that you can buy a start collecting box and then play that start collecting box. I mean, that's I'm all about that.
I'm kind of into that. I mean, I also love what they've done with, like, they're really going down that sort of ye old hero hammer route as well, aren't they? Where the big miniatures and the heroes are where it's at.
Yeah.
Essentially. So, like, you've got all these new special rules for things like priests and monsters and heroes. Some of the models of which are all three, and they've got all of these new special command abilities and just normal abilities that they can implement in any given turn. Things like greater demons, for example, are scary as hell now. Just like, not the special character ones, just the normal greater demons are really scary now. You're going to really be worried about what that Great Unclean One or Keeper of Secrets can do.
What I really want to see now is what happens when the what's his name, Alariel gets on the battlefield.
Yeah,
that can either go into Alariel takes a serious price crunch, or she is a monster.
Yeah, her new battle scroll. The one that's in Kragnos. Whew.
I mean, that is beefy as all hell.
She needed it though, didn't she? Because she never really stood up to the other gods. You know, she wasn't really like god tier like the others were. She bloody is now.
But it fits the narrative because Gur and the realm of life is now on the realm of beast and the realm of life is now on the ascendant.
Of course, yeah, that's one of the big things from Kragnos, isn't it? So clearly the Sylvaneth are going to get a new book. I mean, I think it's fairly clear that the Sylvaneth are probably going to get a new book reasonably soon into 3.0. And yeah, that's wonderful to see, isn't it? Because like Giran has been on the back foot for the longest time. It's been on the defensive effectively, hasn't it? Not anymore. Not anymore. I mean, her conversation with Teclis, where she's like, you know what? No, enough. Death has had its turn. Ruin has had its turn. Life is going to have its turn. And we're going to spread across the realms, whether you like it or not.
Which seems to be the entire point of this version. Yeah, it is. And I tell you what, though, Alariel talking to Teclis really does solidify my idea that that's not Teclis.
Right, yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I don't know what he's doing. No. I don't quite know what his long-term game plan is.
Telling you, Teclis is dead. That's not Teclis.
Who would you think it is then, if you could predict?
I would say it's either the moon spirit that's pretending to be Teclis, you know, the thing that flies around with him.
Yeah.
He's got a little Teclis puppet that's made out of moon dust and fairy streams. It's just like, look, Tyrion, it's your brother. Or what I'd really like is it pulls off his mask at the end and it's like Henrik Kimmler or something.
That would be funny. That would be funny. Even as a... Oh, God. Jesus. What, and the cat's gobbler?
Yeah, that's why we don't see Teclis' legs.
Even as a
stuffed on them.
Even as a conversation with Nagash, doesn't he? From beyond the void, you know. And Nagash is great when he says to him, "You know what? You might have defeated me, but it doesn't matter. I am death. I'm inevitability, and even gods die.
Yes.
I don't have to do anything. I can just wait."
Yep. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. Just over here, polishing my bones.
I kind of love that. I wonder if there's going to be a moment, like narratively, where Nagash erupts back into the realms. Because at the moment, he's not in them, is he?
No.
Technically.
He's reforging and rebuilding himself.
I suppose technically, if you wanted to, you could have a thing where Alariel's going too crazy and life spreading too much, and then Nagash is the hero who stops him.
That would be good, wouldn't it?
I would love that.
If they did that, I'd be really happy. I would be,
because it would be nice to see them say, "Hey, death is not evil; it just is.
It's a counterbalance.
Life is not evil, but it also just is."
I'd love to see that.
Because if Alariel goes too far, Nurgle will get too powerful. Because then the
it's true. It's true. Yeah. Anything that powers Alariel necessarily empowers Nurgle as well. Because he is a god of life, isn't he? And a god of death as well.
And that's why Nagash is a necessity to keep Alariel in check in some ways.
It's a fair point. In fact, it's necessary to keep Nurgle in his place. Both of them have to be at balance. Because Nurgle is the god of both. Nurgle is death and life together. He's the cycle.
Yeah.
So they've got to be careful between them.
It's an interesting idea, isn't it? That Alariel's the spring.
But do you know who else she empowers? Tzeentch. Tzeentch is the chaos god of life as well.
Yes.
He's rampant life and evolution.
Yes, that's
so
very true.
if Alariel spreads too far and too fast, and if new life starts to take hold, Tzeentch will be empowered as well.
Very true. So what we're saying is we need to shoot Alariel in the head. I mean, how good would it be if they just start dropping rocks on Alariel from space? It's like the Slan just going around going, "Nope, too much."
But it's just going to be interesting to see what her dynamic is, you know? Because she's never been she doesn't ever seem to have really been outside of Giran, you know?
No. I mean, it's an interesting thing. Alariel has been this background character a lot more than any of the other gods.
Yeah, definitely.
She's
apart from Malarion.
Oh, true, but
who's sort of asleep, at this point.
Well, Valerian's just kind of waiting for his alarm clock to go
Skulking.
off.
Yeah, he's skulking in Ulgu somewhere, isn't he?
But that kind of works because we don't know anything about him because he's
Yeah.
nothing but shadow and
He's
wrath.
he's the force. He's subversion, isn't he? So actually, he could have been doing a lot. You just wouldn't know.
That's
He's
very
secrets
true.
and subversion. So, what if they introduce like a thing in Third Ed where he's been subtly manipulating events like throughout?
It wouldn't surprise me to find out that Morathi, however you want to pronounce it, I'm just going to say both ways from this point forward, that Morathi, well, actually, there's two of them, isn't there? So that makes sense.
It kind of makes sense, yeah. Which one's which?
Morathi's the big one, Morathi is the little one.
Morathai's the little one. Okay.
The reason that she attained godhood is because of Malarian helping his mother. Yeah. She may not know it. She probably doesn't know it because her ego wouldn't allow it. But it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest.
Interesting. Now that would be interesting if we find out there are like shadowy agents across the mortal realms, influencing and sort of just manipulating the politics of them.
Yeah. Because if they're doing that, would that empower Zeech or would it take away from Zeech?
That would
Because it's
empower
all going to Malarian.
I suppose it is, but if they are mortal and they're engaging in subterfuge or conniving in any shape, it will empower Zeech as well.
Very true.
Because that's what he is. He is that power elementally.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, they are, and clearly another one that's going to turn up eventually in 3.0, the Umbraneth.
Yeah, absolutely.
They've already got a
surprised
name.
I'm surprised they haven't actually arrived yet.
Yeah. I mean, we thought they were going to be, one of the Broken Realms books was going to be Malarion.
Yeah.
It would have made sense for it to be Malarion, actually. But I don't know, maybe they'll introduce him in a campaign for 3.0.
Very possible. I can imagine it being the Malarian and the new dwarfs being the
Yes.
fight.
Yeah, like a boxed set and a campaign and everything. Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Shadow and Iron.
That would be fun. That would be fun.
Unless it's the Oathbreakers, then it's Shadow and Awesome. I really want to buy some Hobgrots. You just sit there, Hobgrots. Just wait for your Chaos Dwarf Masters.
But I suppose what we're waiting for now is like, what is the big narrative push in 3.0 going to be? What's going to be like the campaign that drives it now? Because there will be one. There always is for AOS.
Of course there will. Yeah. The meta narrative will start taking place. Oh, we kind of know what the meta narrative is going forward. It's the
it's order, isn't it? It's order spreading out. It's not being on the hot foot anymore. It's order actively spreading across the realms. For good and bad. I mean, some of the artwork in the new book actually is kind of scary. It depicts these like long caravans of Sigmarite flagellants and zealots spreading across the realms. So it's like, I'm not sure that's such a good thing.
The violent word of Sigmar. One of the things I found really fascinating is the scenery that's coming. It all has this very makeshift being built feel to it. And I was thinking about this. When's the last time the scenery told a narrative? Yeah,
that's a fair point. I mean, the only time I can think of that ever happening is when there was like specific narrative campaigns that had a terrain piece to go with them.
I mean, I'm going right back to Idol of Gork?
God Almighty, that was a long time ago.
No, it wasn't. I'm not old.
That was a long time ago.
Tears of Isha, Idol of Gork, and
the Tears of Isha. Oh my God, Jesus, that was a long time ago.
Oh, it wasn't. It was a couple of years ago.
It wasn't.
Shut up, George.
No, it really wasn't.
I know where you live. I've sent you things. I can hunt you down.
Thank you for that, by the way. That Realm of Chaos book is awesome.
Oh, yeah, it is. It's beautiful.
It's very old school, isn't it? I mean, like,
yeah.
It was really interesting reading it because it took me way back. It took me way back because I had that book and I had the Champions of Chaos book, but it's like they don't hold a candle to the battle tomes that are out now.
In a lot of ways, they don't. What I think those books do better, though, is they get the feel. You get the sense emanating from the pages. Whilst the current battle tomes, I think, are literally some of the best stuff Games Workshop's ever produced.
I think so, yeah.
And Be'lakor is the best book they've made in 20 years.
I kind of agree, yeah.
There is something about I don't know how to... The brain feel.
There's like a rough and ready feeling to them, isn't there? It still feels at that point like it's a little hobby company.
Yes.
There is that feeling to it, which I kind of love. Also, old Archaon. Oh, how cute.
He is very, very cute.
How cute. The original Archaon, who looks shit. Like, even by the standards of the time, he looks a bit shit, doesn't he? Let's be 100% fair. There were Chaos Lords that looked better than him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I did quite like the fact I put those books up on Twitter. Does anybody want these? And literally,
I was in there.
Yeah, as soon as that's sent, I get a message from George.
I remember though. I remember when that came out. It was a massive push for Chaos. It was huge because it was like the first time Chaos had properly crystallized in Warhammer Fantasy Battle outside of like the first edition, where they got a really, really definite idea of the way Chaos worked in Fantasy Battle. And I love the fact that like they came up with so many characters they couldn't really fit them into the main book. So they had to publish a separate book to go for them. And, a lot of those characters are gone now. You can't... They're just dead in the wind. You can't... There isn't even, like, an echo of them anymore, which is a real shame.
Henrik Himmler.
I called Hellbrass.
By the way, that Henrik Himmler had a Dalek.
What?
He had a Dalek. So... In the Terror of the Lich Master, the campaign book, there's an Iron Guard,
right,
in the sitting in one of the campaigns,
right,
and it's because they didn't have anything else to use it in the pictures. They just used the Doctor Who Dalek that they produced for the Doctor Who game.
Ha! So Heinrich Himmler had a pet Dalek, yeah.
Yes, it was removed for later. Because they lost the Doctor Who license.
I'll bet it bloody was.
But yeah, I'll dig it out and I'll put it up on the site. But
brilliant.
He had a pet Dalek.
Yeah, no, they if there's a character they need to bring back, it's Heinrich Himmler. Although he was pretty consistently murdered at the end of AO. Mind you, lots of characters were, and they've come back.
Very true.
Ziegfeld was comprehensively murdered.
Mm-hmm.
He was like bludgeoned to death by a troll. I mean, You're not
coming back from that.
Apparently.
Andy.
Yes.
If Kemmler did make a reappearance, right, would you want him to be just like crotchety old man, just returned? Would you want him in some kind of monstrous new look? Or would you like him to just be like a sentient hat that just moves from person to person?
Wow, we're going back to our discussion on J.K. Rowling again. And Harry Potter.
Can you imagine that? What house will he be in? You shall die.
I mean, the easy way is to just make him Heinrich Himmler again, but that might be a bit of a boring option. So I think you need to do something unique with him if you did bring him back.
Yeah.
But I don't know exactly what. Like, it'd be nice if they made him like a white king, like a character white.
That would be
we don't
fun.
actually have any, like, even with the Soul Blight Gravelords, they touch a little bit on the skeletal undead, but not much. They're very underdeveloped, which makes sense. It's a vampire book, but it says you can do stuff with skeletons, but you can't really. You can only do a minor amount of things with them, and not desperately anything as interesting as you can with the vampires.
Right. So, if you're making an army from that book, you're going to go for a vampire army. Aren't you?
So if you gave like Heinrich Himmler a character, an undead skeletal necromantic,
a lich. Yeah, well, they always used to call him the Lich Master, didn't they? So why not make him a lich?
Yeah.
Why not make him the replacement for Nagash whilst Nagash is
That'd be
feeling
fun.
unwell?
They're feeling unwell. That'd be fun. That would be fun. I mean, at the end of the end times, he declared for chaos, didn't he?
He did, yes.
He realised what Nagash was going to do, and he was like, no. That's no good for me. So
I'd rather blow up the world and kill everybody. I'm not sure you bet on the right horse here, Heinrich.
yeah. I mean, if they're going to do it, if they're going to bring him back, what they need to do is what they did with Ziegfeld, which is take the essence of the character and expound upon it, make him something a bit more interesting. I mean, Ziegfeld was my least favourite character from Chaos in like the latter days of Fantasy Battle. I just found him really disinteresting. What they've done with him now, he is wonderful. He's absolutely wonderful. The miniature's great, the background's great, the rules are great. That's what they need to do with him. Take the essence of the character and just tweak him a little bit. Make him something a little bit more interesting.
Well, it's umping it up, isn't it? It's taking it to the next level of what are the desires and the needs of this character, and then making it over a... I don't want to say a global scale, because that doesn't describe the mortal realms at all. It's not a globe as such. A spherical scale, but making it something that's multifaceted.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
have all these little ins and outs.
The thing with the Lich Master as well is that he was bonkers, wasn't he? He had like these periods of utter dementia where he was just wandering around not knowing who the hell he was.
Sometimes when I wave my stick, the dead rise. It's very unsettling.
That's kind. Maybe they could play into that somehow.
Oh, he could be the accidental Lord of the Dead. Yeah.
That'd be great fun, wouldn't it?
He takes over from Nagash, but didn't mean to.
Didn't mean to. Yeah, make him like. Maybe he like madly wanders around the realms, like, and wherever he goes, the dead rise or something. You know.
Actually, the exact words. They're usually helpful in a audio medium.
Yeah.
You can make him the mirror image of Alarielle. Where Alarielle goes, the life spreads, the flowers grow underneath her feet. You turn that round and make it so wherever Gimler goes, skeletons get up.
Right, that'd be kind of fun, actually.
I really like that as an idea, because you have that in the rules of, like, 2 or 3 skeletons just appear behind him.
Yeah,
Each turn.
Why not? I think that'd be kind of fun.
I love that. I think we've just made the best character ever.
But there's loads of scope for that. I mean, there's so many characters they could bring back. Like, now, most of the Chaos books, for example, have got their big bad character model. You know, in the Hedonites, we've got Glutos, we've got Ziegfeld, and we've got the Slanesh twins. So Slanesh has got more than anybody.
Yeah.
Korn has got Scarbrand, and Valkyr. Nurgler's got Festus and the Rain Lord and Horticulus.
Yeah, I was going
all
to say,
good.
But
Zeech.
not be forgetting about Slimux.
We had Slimux, yeah. Zeech hasn't got anybody.
That's true. It's
It's
weird,
got-
isn't it?
It's
With
got
the
one or
Zeech-
two. It's got Kairos Fate Weaver, but there's no big mortal characters.
No, they need a big rework super badly,
Yeah,
anyway, don't they?
the mortal side of Zeech does. The demons are fine, but the mortal side does, yeah.
It's weird, isn't it? Because when that Zeech book came out for the first edition,
Oh,
era,
so
I wanna
bloody
say,
good. So
it
bloody
was Heads
good.
or Tails that made the new watermark for what those books were going to be going forward.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, the book that's out now, the revamped one, it's a good book. It's a really good book. It just doesn't have, like, as much stuff
Yeah.
as some of the other books. So it would be lovely to have a few more mortal characters, like proper characters. They need to bring back Egrim van Horstman, goddammit.
Oh, yes, please. Yeah, he was great.
Bring him back. He's a big badass riding a dragon. I mean, come on. What they could do with that model now.
Yeah.
What they could do with Egrim van Horstman. And they could bring him back easily. At the end of the End Times, he went bang because he tried to absorb, the Wind of Light, which became Teclis and Tyrion. He tried to absorb that into himself, and it blew him up. Well, that's so easy. Maybe his soul shards are sort of surging around the mortal realms, like light, and they can cohere again at some point.
All you do is you have one of those mirrors that Zeech loves so much. I can't think what they're called. The ones from Shadespire. Just stick one of them up with a little aerial. Open it, just collecting all the parts of him from the Wind of Magic.
That's what
Wind of
happened to
Light.
Ziegfeld. Ziegfeld
Yeah,
was in
yeah.
one of those mirrors.
Yes. Actually, it's Slanesh that loves the mirrors, not Zeech.
It's Slanesh, yeah.
Yeah.
The contorted epitomes, which are actually
Yes.
living mirrors. which is a brilliant concept for Slaanesh. Absolutely brilliant.
All right, then Zeech just puts a Christmas present under the tree for Sigmar. Sigmar opens it, and a horseman falls out.
They also don't have their terrain piece yet.
They don't.
Which is interesting.
Here's another interesting one for you. Endless spells. So
Right.
they're done.
Right. What? Why don't the Soul Blights have any endless spells?
Because they're under control again.
Right. So it's
in
done.
the,
Are we
it's
finished?
In the 3.0 book. Yeah. There's very few of them now. They've kind of burnt themselves out.
Okay. So are they going to phase them out?
Looks like it.
Interesting. Wow. That's an odd move, considering there are honest-to-God models for these spells.
Yeah,
That's a very strange way to go.
The rules are still there. But yeah, for the narrative, and it doesn't look like we're going to get any more of them going forward.
That is very peculiar, isn't it?
It is. And I don't know how I feel about it, to be honest, because some of them are just so damn cool.
Yeah, I love the endless spells, I've got to say. I'm a big fan of the endless spells.
I guess if you want to customize anything with them, buy them now before they're gone.
Yeah, I suppose so. And that's a shame because again, they're great for conversions as well.
Better get me that snake that drips blood.
Oh, from the Daughters of Cain. Yeah. God, have you got that book, the new one?
I have it on my the thingy. I have to read, but
very good.
Get around to it.
They released it alongside the Hedonites, you know.
Once I have my week off and I spend every night reading at least one book, I will be up to date and it will be great, and I'll be very happy.
I was I'm just going over all of the like the chaos specific books, the Maggotkin, the Blades of Khorne, the Disciples of Zeech, and the Hedonites. It is basically the best chaos has ever been in the fantasy system. There's no two ways about it. It is the most coherent, the most expansive, imaginative, interesting chaos has ever been in the gaming system.
Yeah, I totally agree. The way that chaos, I mean, the bare cogwork of what chaos is in AOS is far more interesting to me than it has been in a long, long time.
Oh God, yeah.
There's only so much you can do with the unnameable horrors, and they kind of have to have a purpose, and that's such a difficult balancing act. Yeah. Once the purpose gets made clear, you're either going to lose people's interest or you're going to really get into stuff.
Well, it seems what they're trying to do with the chaos powers in AOS is make them more dynamic. So for the longest time, they have just been these elemental evils that squat in their space beyond time, where they just don't do anything. They just send their minions out and that's it. But now, like with Slaanesh, obviously Slaanesh has had a really fantastic narrative throughout AOS, which is still ongoing. It's still an ongoing narrative. But they seem to be trying to do that with all the chaos powers, to invest them with a little bit of dynamism.
Yeah, very much so. And I like as weird as it sounds, I like my chaos powers to have an ego.
Yeah.
And that's what they've got here. But does anyone else find it weird that Slaanesh still isn't actually free?
Yeah, it's odd, isn't it? Slaanesh isn't free, but it's like right on the edge. Right on the edge. And it almost doesn't matter at this point, because you've got the twins who are kind of like they're not incarnations of Slaanesh, but they're like avatars of Slaanesh. And at the end of, is it Kragnos? They take up the throne, don't they?
Pretty much, yeah.
They are now the powers that are in the palace of Slaanesh.
Wouldn't it be weird if Slaanesh now starts to wither?
Oh, and they become the new. You know what? I'm not entirely opposed to that idea.
It would be interesting.
It would be very interesting. I'm not opposed to the idea. So I kind of like it.
Basically, anyone who's listening, just send your checks to Adam Nicol, courtesy of the Fluffenhammer, and I'll give you more ideas.
I kind of like it, I'll be honest. It almost makes sense, Yeah.
I think it makes a lot of sense.
It does make a lot of sense, because these two embody like the very essence of Slaanesh, don't they?
Yes.
And they're like all of his aspects sort of made manifest in demonic form.
And I think because what they're doing with 3.0, and it's painfully obvious this is what they're doing, they're starting to clear the decks.
Yep. It's clear.
They're going to start removing a lot of the old names to replace with brand new things, which is wonderful. I'm all up for that, because evolution's a great thing. I mean, Kragnos is just so cool. It's ridiculous. I wish I could find a paint scheme for that guy that I like, so I can.
So you can go to town on him, yeah.
Yeah, I really want to go to town on him because he's great, but he's still just a little too beastmany for my liking.
I just love the fact that they're going down the route of introducing these new gods. I mean, I'm kind of into that. That seems to be what the Broken Realms are all about, you know?
Oh yeah, I mean that's exactly it. It's moving a lot of the things forward. You've got
Upsetting the status quo a bit, yeah?
You've got enough familiar names for it to not feel completely alien, but a lot of new stuff's incoming.
I mean, do you guys find it ironic that it's been called Age of Sigmar since day one, and one of the only gods that hasn't got up off their arse and done something is Sigmar?
Well, I mean, I always thought that 2.0 was going to be the age of Nagash, and then 3.0 would have been the age of whatever. Age of Kimmler.
That would be fun.
But yeah, it's weird that they've kept the name Age of Sigmar all the way through.
I think it's almost because like Sigmar's having to give away a lot of his power to the Stormcast, right?
Yeah.
So he can't really get off his ass because most of his ass is
busy,
arguably
basically.
off the seat already. Yeah,
it's busy. Yeah.
Maybe we'll get Sigmar later on down the line, like
sure.
in an event like where the Stormcast mostly get wiped out completely.
I'm
and
sure
he regains all of his shards.
They've got to do it at some point. They have got to do a situation where Sigmar, or like an avatar of Sigmar, like rises again.
So if you were going to pull, like, we've seen the Slanesh avatars.
Yep.
So if you're going to pull from history, who would you pull as the avatar of Sigmar?
Gal Marazza with little tiny arms and legs.
Vulcan. That'd be grand. Or maybe it just flies. Maybe it just flies.
No, I want little arms and legs. So then it can like shake its fist at people. And then it can headbutt people.
It's a bit like the paperclip from Windows, but it's a big hammer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm seeing it as the Kool-Aid man.
That's how he arrives on the battlefield.
Yeah, smashing through the wall of the Varan Spire. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Vulcan.
Yeah.
It's going to be Vulcan, isn't it? If they ever do like an avatar of Sigmar, it will so be Vulcan.
It'd be nice if it was a reference to Karl Franz. That'd be quite nice.
Karl
as well.
Franz would be nice too. Yeah.
I'm going to put all my money down on Conrad the hero.
Uh,
Nobody knows who he is except me.
That was a long time
the
ago.
Vampire Lord Conrad.
No.
The most helpful and useful of all the vampires.
Yeah.
No. Predates Conrad the Vampire.
Oh, that's what they should have called him, the most helpful and useful of all the vampires. He's so awesome.
Man, I'm so glad we got rid of Vlad von Karstein. He was lame. I'm so glad, as me, the simple human peasant, we've got Conrad now.
Yeah, a character who actually had a special rule called a few bats short of a belfry. Literally. Wow. But yeah, if they do an avatar, it will so be Vulcan, won't it?
I'd say you're probably right.
Because he was Sigmar, wasn't he?
Yes.
He was actually like the Christ figure of Sigmar. He was Sigmar reborn.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Ended up being murdered by Deathmaster Schnicht.
Because of Skaven, always doing good.
Yeah. And also because they wanted to reset the status quo and they couldn't have Sigmar wandering around.
Yeah.
Yay.
And then they also dropped the moon on the Lizard Men.
Yeah.
If anybody ever says that Skaven technology doesn't work, I just point them to the fact that A, they dropped a moon on the Lizard Men, and B, they found an Eldar craft world.
They found an Eldar craft world, yeah. They actually found like an Eldar ship, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
Did anyone do a meme of like the Lizardmen and using the moon from one of those Zelda games?
Yes, from not the Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask. That's right. Yeah.
Someone needs to get on that and meme that up with the Lizardmen.
Someone really does need to do that. They're another one that's I'm fairly certain are going to have like a big push at some point in 3.0.
Well, I wanted to mention this actually, right? The Seraphon. We are famous for really clowning on the Seraphon.
Mm-hmm.
We have the Slan specifically.
The Slan, and then Croak comes along, and you're like, "Oh, well, we apologise wholeheartedly because
absolutely because
oh
the Broken
my
Realms
god,
really ratcheted up.
Have you seen what he can do?
Yes,
his War Scroll is insane.
I mean, that is godhood right there.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
ridiculous powers.
we said Teclis was like the big magic user. Croak is like, oh, my sweet summer child. You know, Croak is like, he is the god of all magic, isn't he? He is insanely magically powered.
And it's the points cost alone is astronomical. So
Well,
it
needs to be.
Yeah.
That thing where he can call down the comets. It's like, well, that's bonkers, isn't it?
Do you have to roll a d6 to see if he's awake?
I wish it did.
Oh.
Well, you don't actually play as Croak. You play as one of his skink attendants.
Yeah.
And you've got to roll a d20 at the beginning of every match to see if he's awake or not.
Oh, I thought you were going to say in case you have to, like, scrub his feet.
Yeah, prod him with a stick or something.
6, you have to scrub Croak's feet. Morale decreases.
That miniature is something else. It's something else, isn't it? It's like, it's one of those miniatures when you look at it and you just cannot believe it exists.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's one of those ones where I'd love to own it just to paint it.
Yep.
It's beautiful.
If that's where the Slan are going, where they're really going to like lean into this archaic stone technology thing, go for it. Make them the AOS equivalent of the Necrons, effectively. Go for it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I've said it multiple times, and I don't want Christoph Carlson to come after me with a machete.
With a blowpipe, as would be appropriate.
It's just, I look outside, and in the hedge, there's just a rustling. Just a pair of eyes staring at a blowpipe just comes out of the wood. I don't really want to go through it all again, but you know they never worked as the demons of order. It didn't fit. So bringing them back to being living creatures and having that idea of the mythical concrete floating through the sky. I mean, I'm all in.
Yeah.
The fact that the Seraphon had an actual honest to God
space battle, yeah, it was awesome. It's so epic. It's so epic.
Frame of it, it's beautiful.
You would never have seen anything like that in Fantasy Battle. Just nothing even compared. Nothing I ever read in Fantasy Battle compared to that.
No, not on that kind of scale. And you know, there's a lot of Fantasy Battle that I still to this day love to bits. But the setting just would never have been able to support something.
It just wouldn't have
massive.
coped, would it? Wouldn't have coped.
And you know, I know that we've been back to this well a couple of times now, but the entire moment we realise what's happening and the Silver Tower is now being shot at by flying pyramids in space,
and it's fighting back.
Yeah,
it's like, whoa, okay.
Did the pyramid shoot smaller pyramids?
No, it shot lasers of anti-life or something.
I just love the fact that Baylacor engineered it all deliberately.
Yep.
As a way of corrupting a realm gate. It's like, okay. You know, Baylacor's a clever chap, isn't he?
Baylacor is absolutely amazing. When you compare Baylacor, who is just nothing but personality and plans and wondrousness, to Archeon, who is cut-price Skeletor. You know, I know which side I'm falling on.
Yeah, I love what they've done with him. They've really introduced him as a power in the realms, haven't they? He is one of the god tier characters, and he's a proper power. He's a player in the mortal realms.
Oh yeah, I mean, tell me something Archeon has done which is as infinitely cool as holding a sword over Lady Oleander's dead form.
Yeah, that was brilliant. That sequence was awesome.
And it's just like, oh no, this is just so me and you can have a chat.
Yeah. This whole war is just so we can talk.
Oh my God, I love that book.
Yeah,
I'm going to reread it tonight.
It's very good. It's very good indeed. I just liked what they've done with him as a character. The fact that they've really tried to invest him with something a bit more interesting than your standard sort of Chaos Lord or Chaos Messiah or whatever.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's neither, is he? He's just a force of personality.
He's his own entity, strangely, isn't he? I mean, he is a force of chaos, but he is also an independent agent.
Yeah. And I think that's where Archeon falls down. Archeon feels like a puppet in a lot of ways, even though the idea is that he's not, that he is manipulating the gods to his own will.
Yes.
The way that he is presented in the world, he doesn't feel like somebody who has plans, ambitions, and dreams. He feels like somebody who just wants to go off and smash things.
Interestingly, he's been a bit inert, hasn't he, really,
Yes,
in the background? Very. I mean, there's a lot of stuff about his history and the stuff that he did in the past, which is grand, but not a great deal about what he's doing now.
But even then, when you talk about stuff he did in the history, it's Archeon did this. It's not Archeon snarls down his spear at Sigmar and wishes curses upon his begotten child or something. You know, it's literally just, and Archeon
did this, and Archeon did that.
And Archeon won. It's like the war.
I mean, in fairness, if you want to defend that, you could easily say, well, that's because it was at the start of AOS, where, as we all know, it wasn't desperately good. So Archeon could be interesting.
Yeah.
They just haven't actually written anything new to make him interesting.
That's
then
true.
You have the war with the Bone Reapers. And it's exactly the same thing. It's
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, Archeon just won. There you go.
He is kind of the big win button, isn't he, in Chaos? I mean, whoever he comes up against, he wins against them.
Yeah, I mean, you've got...
Nagash, Catacross, Sigmar, for God's sake.
Catacross, the constantly defeated.
The constantly defeated.
Always wins.
Yeah, Jackie Chan. Even if I die, I don't actually die in real life. I win.
Catacross is great in the Broken Realms as well. He's actually very reasonable.
That's the thing I like about Catacross. Catacross is actually a really down-to-earth fella.
Yeah. Yeah, he's not a monster. You can actually have, like, parley with him.
I can imagine him sitting there with his little cups of China tea. Yes, please, sit down around the parasol. Have a conversation. Is this parasol made of bones? Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Sit down on the chair. Is the chair made of bones? Oh, yes.
What's the tea made out of?
Bones. But the China cup is actual China.
I mean, these bones.
I mean, I'm into an entire different realm of reality for these.
I mean, it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what the Bone Reapers are actually doing in 3.0. Because in the wake of the Soul Blight book, you kind of need to redo all the Undead books.
Yes, and I think the Legions of Nagash, I think, is going to get.
It's done.
I squatted. Yeah, it's done. The Soul Blight replaces it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Legion of Nagash was a holdover book which needed to come out. Now it's not needed. It can be thrown away now, effectively.
Yeah, and I must say, I really like the way the trajectory of Undead in AOS is kind of echoing the way it went in Fantasy Battle. You know how you had the polyglot undead thing at the beginning, and then it went more towards the vampires with the vampire cats. We're kind of having the same trajectory here. Yeah,
but it makes a lot of sense that you have an entire race that's inbuilt undead.
Yeah.
And then they become the heads of the entire idea of undead.
It makes a lot of sense because the vampires are some of the only undead that actually have personality. That you can make characters out of the vampires. It's a bit more difficult with some of the other undead because they don't have characters.
Are you saying that Arch Lichmaster Kimmler from Warhammer Age of Kimmler doesn't have a personality?
No, my problem with Kemmler is that he has lots of different personalities at any one time, and they often conflict with one another.
I know, I want to see him like wandering around just going, Nagash, give me my fucking money, you dirty nerd.
Well, that kind of happened for a long time in Fantasy Battle, didn't it? He was actually lost. It was in the Cripple Peak Mountains, wasn't it? Yes. He used to wander around as a hermit up there, just muttering to himself for literally for centuries.
Do you guys know about core Facebook groups? Have you seen any of these?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So my favourite one is Moon Knight Core, and it's there's a few others. What it is, it's taking a character and then redoing all of their speech bubbles so they have a different thing. And Moon Knight Core is hilarious. It's like legitimately funny. But one of the more famous ones is Moon Knight walking down this castle going, I know where you are, Dracula. Where's my money, you fucking nerd? And now I want to make Hemric Core, where it's just pictures of Hemric with different captions and speech bubbles.
It would work. For Heinrich Himmler, it would work, because that's literally what he did for a long time.
And do you know who could play him? in a movie. Andrew Divoff.
Is he still around, Andrew Divoff?
I haven't seen him in anything for a long time.
You get him out of retirement to play Henrik Kimmler, and then, then you get Willem Dafoe to play Nagant.
But yeah, no, I really like where, I like where the undead are at the moment. I think they're in a really cool spot.
No, I agree, and I mean the stuff that I've seen for the undead. I mean, every time I see something for the Soulblight, I just think, I'm sorry, Andy.
Yeah.
Why?
Because
it's all so good, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's all good. I'm so sorry that your money has to go on these things.
I think, cards on the table, gun to head. My favourite of the new models is the Avangori Lord. I friggin' love it. And that character, what's her name? Lauka Vai.
Oh, yeah, with the...
she's beautiful.
I don't understand how that exists in 3D. Yeah, that thing doesn't make sense to my brain.
What I love about her as well is that she's a noble vampire. Despite her bestial appearance, she's actually one of the few genuinely noble vampires. She's trying to steer the Avengori away from being monsters, She doesn't like them preying on just normal people.
Yeah, it's a little bit harder to do than the knight dude from the Fantasy Battle days.
Yeah.
What was he called? The guy that drank the dragon's blood?
Oh, Abarash.
Yeah, I always liked Abarash.
Yeah.
But she's got a much harder task. It's like, I've just got to convince normal vampires. She's got to convince
She's got to
convince
vampires. The most monstrous, bloodthirsty vampires in existence. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't
Do you think she Dr. Phil's them?
Counsels them. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh, Jesus. There's a bit in the Soulblight books where it describes where they live, Adam, and the minute I read it, I was like, Adam would love this. There's like some cursed desert in Sheesh, and in the catacombs underneath it, which are gigantic, they're like city scale, there are these stalagmite cities that are interlinked by bridges of bone, and that's where the Avangori live.
That's
it's like a hive. It's like a honeycomb hive where they live.
Oh, I'm all about that.
It's rocking, isn't it? It's absolutely
rocking. If there was
rocking.
an earthquake, I can tell you that much.
No, it would not.
Kragnos isn't
Yeah,
going near it.
yeah. If Kragnos goes near that, they're dead, basically.
Yeah.
Or more dead.
Falls.
More dead.
Vampires 2, the re-deadening.
Yeah. Right. The undead.
More dead is the city underneath that city.
No, I love what they've done with the new vampires. I love the fact they're introducing new bloodlines. I think that is fantastic.
Yeah, it's a really cool way of doing things.
And they're just broadening the definition a little bit. So now there's not just like one way to become a vampire. There are lots of different ways of becoming vampires in the mortal realms, which makes a lot of sense.
It does. It does, because you've got so much ability and so much scope to be able to play with things that you might as well really go for it.
Yeah, play about. Do something fun with it. And they are doing something fun with it. I love the fact that you can, like, in an Avangori army, you can take Terrorgeists and zombie dragons as battle line.
Like I've said many times before, it is just picking up the rules from the Flesh Eater Core book and just transferring them over.
It's pretty much it.
It's a little bit lazy in some ways because it is just the same rules, just pulled over.
Yeah.
But if we spend the next year doing to the Flesh Eater Courts what we did to the Seraphon, the Flesh Eater Courts will get good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, whenever that happens, because I would imagine the Flesh Eater Courts, because they had that book, are low down on the list of things that need to be revamped.
I think they're
revamped.
I didn't mean it.
It burns. It burns like the sunlight. Yeah, I agree. I think they're probably a bit low down on the... they're going to be concentrating on new stuff for a while.
I think
I don't think they're popular enough to be pushed up that. Like, it makes sense for the dwarves to be done.
Yeah.
Makes sense for the shadow elves to be done.
Yep.
And the Seraphon to be done. but the flesh eater courts, unless they really have a good idea for them,
Right.
yeah, they'll go play with your dead bodies and eat them.
Yes,
in a
I
corner
mean
somewhere.
they've even got like in the Avengori they've even got a sort of stand-in, really, haven't they? So
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I mean, I've always said that they've got the same problem that the Seraphon had, where the disconnect between the miniature and the rules and the tabletop presence was huge.
yeah.
So if they just kind of become part of the vampire army, I think I'm actually all right with that.
I'm kind of all right with it myself. I mean, I would love to see them completely revamp the Flesh Eater Courts range where they are half and half, where they're sort of like they're part in their delusion and part not.
Yes.
I think that would be such a great stylistic way to take them.
I agree.
But whether that will ever happen, I don't know.
I think a lot of the holdover stuff from Fantasy Battle it's getting rid of now, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's all going. That's the point. Yeah, they want to move everything off into new stuff, which I totally understand.
Kind of time, isn't it? I mean, as sad as some of us might find it, it's kind of time for it to happen now.
You say sad, I'm happy because it means that at last we can get rid of those goddamn trousers on the goddamn Cities of Sigmar people.
Yes, the pantaloons can go.
I hate them so much.
The only character that's allowed to wear pantaloons is Teclis from now on.
Indeed. And they're more hammer pants than anything else.
Right.
But yeah, if we can... Because, I mean, we'll see what the Cities of Sigmar stuff's looking like. I mean, the design aesthetic for humans in AOS is gorgeous.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. It's really cool.
And if we can just get rid of those fucking trousers, I'll be so happy.
So what do you have against the trousers?
I despise them, Andy. I have despised them since the beginning.
Oh, well,
you're
a
tight-fitting jean kind of man, aren't you?
Come over to the Hedonites and then you don't have to wear trousers at all.
That's true. It's all on the table.
It's all there, isn't it? If you paint Zigvold in a particular way.
Oh yeah. The chaps have been forgotten. I don't know what it is. There's something about pantaloons. They anger me. They drive me into bloodthirsty rage.
That's an out of context quote that needs to go somewhere. There's something about pantaloons. They anger me.
They kind of, when I was young, right? When I was quite young,
oh God, there's trauma involved. Bloody hell.
No,
pantaloon-based trauma. What would you call that?
Panta rage. When I was young, I used to hate Ed the Duck.
Okay, this is going down some very strange avenues now.
Yeah, but it's just to get across how I feel. And because I was young, I didn't quite have the words for pisses me off. And that's how I feel about pantaloons. Pantaloons are much like Ed the Duck, and that they just really get my spine raised in a werewolfish hackle type way. I hate pantaloons.
Oh my God.
They're stupid. And the person who created them should have been shot at birth.
Wow.
I don't think guns were invented at that point, so,
You heard it here first, folks. Wow.
Pantaloons are stupid.
Wow.
Like, can you imagine trying to draw a sword whilst wearing pantaloons?
It's a fair point. Or trying to fight in pantaloons, for example.
Can you think of all the pantaloons listening to this podcast who've now just turned off and just been like, I'm never going to go back to Fluffenhammer?
I don't want your business.
Cancelled, Adam.
For a start off.
Yeah, we need to cancel Adam for hating pantaloons.
For hating pantaloons. God almighty.
Yeah.
For a start off, you're a pair of sentient trousers, and this worries me greatly.
You need to be more open with your opinions, Gruff. You need to broaden your horizons a little bit more.
I will take any other type of trouser. Literally any other type of trouser. Any form of leg garment that is fine, except pantaloons.
Like I said, come over to the Hedonites. You don't need to worry about it at all.
Well, what I think I might just do is I might go for dwarf, because then you just get like an iron skirt, and that looks quite comfortable. Yeah.
Right.
Well, you can just wrap beard around your leg.
I was going to say, the beards suffice, don't they?
Yeah.
It depends. If I do something bad enough where I have to take the Slayer's Oath, then once again, trousers, optional.
Once again, they kind of go for the sky-clad thing, don't they?
Indeed,
so
I think I'd suit an orange mohawk.
I think Castaway, the guy Tom Hanks in Castaway looks a bit like a fire slayer.
Welcome to season 4 of the Fluffenhammer.
Tom Hanks as a fire slayer.
To do
Wow.
this.
Wow.
Oh, this is the best show we've ever done. Right, should we start wrapping it up?
Shall we?
Sure.
Shall we? I mean, like, I can't think of anything else to say other than the fact that the way things are going in AOS at the moment has kind of tipped the scales for me.
Mm-hmm.
I was always such a 40k guy, a 40k guy, and I do love Night That. I think it's like probably the best the game has been for a good long while. But the stuff in AOS is so good.
Yeah.
And it's doing everything I want. It's got all the stuff I want. It's got the Slaanesh stuff, and it's the Slaanesh stuff I want, you know. I can't really deny it, if I'm honest.
I'm going to find it very interesting what happens towards the end of this year, beginning of next year.
Yeah.
We know that the Old World is coming, and that's going to be a Forge World release.
Yeah. I
Which,
mean, fascinating.
I'm very interested to see what that actually does and what it is.
Yeah.
My hesitancy is it's Forge World, so that's going to be expensive.
Yeah, interested to see. Not going to touch it.
Yeah.
But interested to see.
I'm fascinated by it. I'll probably keep a distance from it, to be honest, because it just isn't my thing. I'm interested in what's happening now.
Yeah.
You know?
If it's really popular, though, it'll probably come back. Because isn't there rumours that 30k is coming back in plastic form?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
So-
one of the big rumours, actually. It seems to be very credible, that one.
What I understand from it, from looking at the sort of the business view of how things work, is that they're losing the rights to Lord of the Rings.
Which makes sense.
So they're going to bring 30k in as the replacement for Lord of
Well,
the Rings.
isn't Lord of the Rings like the one big bugbear at the moment? Whenever it comes to the Lord of the Rings moment in any of the streams or whatever, who just like buggers off and makes a cup of coffee like me?
Yeah.
Or, and, you know, it's the same in White Dwarf, isn't it? You know, you get to the Lord of the Rings section, it's like, don't need to read that. Let's get to where the good stuff is.
I'm sure it has its fans, but
I'm sure.
it's probably limited.
Yeah.
Even more so than Age of Sigmar. Oh.
It's true though. I think. I think we've seen the last of the Lord of the Rings releases now. I think they're done.
I think it's done. Yeah.
I think that's fine. It's had a good run.
It's
I mean,
for a long
all
time. And let's be
things-
fair, the Peter Jackson movies have been done for a very, very long
All
time.
things considered, it's done really well. You know,
Absolutely,
it's done very well, but it has had its run now, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Man, imagine if they made Hobbit movies. That could be interesting if it's like one movie. That'd be great.
If they made a good one, that'd be grand, wouldn't it?
What do you mean? They haven't made any Hobbit movies.
Imagine, if you will, if they make some kind of Amazon series, which is slowly but surely becoming the most expensive series ever made.
Oh, well, that means it'll be great. Money fixes everything.
Oh, yeah.
Moving on. Andy, where can
Hey.
people find you if they would like to find you as you spend your time in the burning bush known as the Burning Bush?
Oh my god. You can find me on Twitter, CCTFW, YouTube is Scrubber Commander TFW. You can find me on podcasts as the Moonbase 2 podcast. We're on Twitter, iTunes, Facebook, and Libsyn. And you can also find me on Twitch as CCTFW, where I stream video games pretty much every night from 11 o'clock in the UK time in the evening till about 1 or 2 in the morning.
Excellent. George, what dark, unseen corner of a hideous tavern can people find you if they want to gain you for a quest?
Oh, it's going to be in the rough side of town, probably. You can find me over at strangeplaygrounds.com, where there are links to all of my published fiction, and there are also occasional free short stories and articles and whatnot. You can find regular series of articles over at the Gingernuts of Horror.com. You can also find a lot of my published articles and review work in the periodical Dark Moon Digest. I'm a sort of a regular contributor to that. There's a new short story collection coming out very, very soon. It's up for pre-order now over at perpetualmotionmachinepublications.com. And that's Born in Blood Volume 2. There's also a bundle pack of Volume 1 and 2 for a very reasonable price. And you can also find me over at Exaggerated Elegy, where I do occasional podcasts about anything, whatever takes my fancy, and play video games. I'm currently doing Dark Souls 3 again for God knows what reason. Love it to bits, but I don't know why I started that again. And also finishing off Resident Evil 7, moving on to Resident Evil 8 very soon.
Excellent stuff. As for myself, you can find me here. You can also find me on Twitter at Grufflock, and you can find the Fluffenhammer at the Fluffenhammer on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook, but my God, you've got to run through the traps, and a giant rolling ball may crush you as you do so. You can also find some other work that I've started to do over on adnickel.weebly.com, where I've been doing artwork, commissions for artwork. I'm going to be releasing audiobooks through that, and I'm going to be releasing a skirmish game through that down the line as well. Now that is in a, well, somewhat of a usable form after a year and a half. I'm still not finished with it. It's still got a long way to go, but I'm going to start releasing it through that site.
All right.
For the hell of it. You can find the Fluffenhammer at thefluffenhammer.com. I'm halfway through migrating the old site into a new site. I started this about 2 months ago. It's a much bigger... I didn't realise how much stuff we've put out on that
There's
site.
a lot of stuff, isn't there? There's a lot of stuff. You just count, your readings alone, Adam. There's tons.
Yeah, and then I started doing like the weekly releases from Instagram and the weekly releases of the Humble Archive troll.
Yeah, there's the occasional like bits and pieces from Fluffenhammer adjacent, and yeah, there's all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, I'm up to the end of 2018 now. That's where I've got to in the migration.
Wow. God. There's a lot to go then.
So if anybody would like to volunteer to help me, I will not say no. Good God. And I think that's it. So with all that being said, we will get out of here. Thank you so much, Andy, for joining us, you beautiful star child.
Hang on, Andy's a star child. What, you mean like as in like old Rogue Trader sense star child? Like child of the Emperor?
No, like the one from 2001 Space
Oh,
Odyssey.
the big baby. Okay.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, actually, Abby sent me another text whilst we were recording.
Okay.
Let me just read this one out to you.
Is this giant space baby related?
I was going to say,
is.
is it giant space baby related?
It says, I just can't believe Andy lied about his age on his Boss Baby application. It's ludicrous.
That's true.
Okay.
And thank you so much, George, you dark Slaneshi demon.
It's a pleasure, as always. Being a Slaneshi demon, everything's a pleasure. There's nothing else, really, is there? So,
No, I mean, the simple act of opening a Tesco's carrier bag.
Right, yeah, ecstatic. Orgasmic.
First here, then there. Make up your mind already.
Hey, that was really good. That was so much fun. It was so nice getting back in.
Is close.
I love
Frequent. have destroyed that which offended the Emperor. Victory for the righteous!